I have no idea what the fuck to do today, you guys. I did not spend a second of my weekend planning for stream. So I think it might be time for us to do that beach bag. And also, I think that I am probably going to do Bear Taffy's Bear as a video instead of as a stream. And I hope you guys are okay with that. But that way I can release it after he gets it and there's no chance that it will spoil the surprise. Oh no, J-Rod, I'm sorry. I just literally said the opposite of that. Hi, guys. I have to move my business around. Oh, okay, good. I was so scared that you were going to be mad at me because I love you and I don't ever want to disappoint you guys. It's so worrisome when I think about it, about just like disappointing you guys. And I feel like I do it all the time by like canceling streams and stuff that I got to do. And it just feels so bad when I like know that that it's going to happen. But, yeah, I think that something that I might do is here. We'll get live. I think that something, oh, Father, I am disappointed. I hate it. I hate that. I'm not into that. Please no. Oh God. Can anybody else not breathe? Oh. Please no. Don't worry, Doxy. I disappoint myself every day more than you could in a lifetime. Oh. Would that I could hug you over that. I feel that so hard. I feel that so fucking hard. But, anyway, what was I in the middle of I was in the middle of saying a thing, TM. I don't remember. Excuse me. Holy mother. Did I change some mic stuff? No. Is it using the wrong mic? It shouldn't be. It should be using the right microphone. My voice sounds smooth. Has it been using the wrong one up until now? I have a doctor's appointment next week. Maybe we can scare up something about my executive dysfunction. Yo, I feel that really hard too. Hi, Jace. J-Rod, thank you, by the way, for resubbing. Appreciate you. I don't know why I put a Y in there. Is it not a Y in dysfunction? Because 1,000,000% I thought that was right. Like 1,000,000%. But now that we're like discussing whether it's Y or I, I'm with you. Do you want to know? The most terrible thing just happened to me. Do you want to know something awful? Hello, Kinscalves Simp. Kinscalves Imp? You tell me how to say it. Anyway, Noah Samson tweeted a selfie and nice, and I was attracted to it. He's too young. He's 24. Dysfunction is the more common one. I am vindicated. Okay, that makes me feel better too. 100%. Hola, Poetry Crow. Is it está bien? Is that how you answer that? I don't remember. I'm so sorry. Kinscalves Simp. Okay. Thank you. What would you like me to call you? Just Kinscalves Simp? Like what would you like that shortened to? Or do you like the whole thing? Oh my goodness, James Rocks. Thank you so much. Yeah, it is an official year. It's our anniversary together, James. Thank you so much. I appreciate that a lot. Hi, Willow. Hi, Dragon Rana. Hi, everyone. Hello. I didn't get notified. That's okay. We are just now sitting down to stream. Kins. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. I apologize. Thank you for your patience while we figure this all out. James, thank you for the cheers. That's so nice. The biddies, that's really nice of you. Excuse me, I'm just like itching my armpit here. Your leg pain went away and then moved up to your hip. Oh no. Have you got it looked at? Would you get that looked at? That scares me. That is worrisome to me. Can you get that looked at? Because that sounds like, what kind of pain is it? That I would be terrified of it being a blood clot. Being a blood clot. You slept through the last 2 streams. Well, you're here now. And it's good to see you. I was feeling, if you guys wanted to, we could do the true crime and bag that we've been meaning to do with this beautiful purple that we got forever ago and haven't touched yet. Oh my God, it looks so much more faithful to what it is on cam now that I have like adjusted the light and stuff. This is what this looks like. It's this purple and gray, like bordering on brown. It's beautiful and I love it. Can we watch the video from, I don't have permission from Explore With Us. I'm so sorry. I have reached out to them, so they might get back to me. Oh, there's blue in the middle of it. How gorgeous is that? I don't usually like blue very much. Rana, thank you so much for the biddies. What places do you have permission from? Are you, Willow, are you on mobile or are you on desktop? The panels under the stream have a list of the stuff that we have permission from. I also, I was thinking we could just catch up. We have a bunch more dreading that we could watch. And we could start this bag. Also, has anybody said hi on YouTube? No, that's not true. That's not true. It's Estoy bien. Poetry Crow. Gracias. Sorry, Spanish is not one of the ones that I have studied, really. I am much better with French and German. I know a little Spanish, but like it's really minimal. I would not be able to keep up in like a children's cartoon, for example. I really would like to get back on those. We could do some Latin if y'all feel like it. We have permission from that chapter, Morbidology, Dreading, Fascinating Horror, and Night Mind. Yes. Yes. And Nexpo. Does Peggy Hill's Spanish count? I don't think it does. Fuck. Did I just make this not worse instead of fixing it? I think I did. You're about to commit arson? No! Do I not have Nexpo on the panel? Son of a bitch. I have so much back-end stuff to do, and I get to a day where I'm like, okay, I'm going to work on back-end stuff, and I spend the whole time trying to fix the fucking alerts and not even, like, thinking that I've done it and then not even having done it. It's so infuriating. Oh, sorry, Reaper. When are applications checked? Whenever the mod team feels overwhelmed and like they need more mods. So it could be a year. It could be a week. Hopefully we grow enough in the next year for us to need some more mods. That would be really nice. At least now it's a bit better because there's awesome people here. That's true. Yeah, that's true. Anyway, I think that if it's okay with you, could I get some yeses or some thumbs up or any kind of affirmations in chat? If it's okay with you guys, if you would like it, if we did more dreading and the beach bag. Yes, affirmation. Thank you. Reaper, I want to snug you. You're the best. Thank you. I'm so upset. I'm so upset about that picture that Noah Samson posted. He's so cute. I hate it so much. He needs to cool it. Okay. Let me get this going here. Oh, golly, excuse me. Oh no, stop. Shush. Shush, shush. Apologies. All right. So I feel like we could get through 2 of these videos. It's not capturing. I thought it was. I'm so sorry. One moment. One moment. There we go. I'm thinking that we could do, like, he's doing a bunch of celebrity stuff lately, hey? I feel like we should start with the Phil Hartman one, and then you guys can choose during that whether you would prefer to do Kevin Spacey or Sid and Nancy next. And then if we have time, we'll do all 3, but I don't think we will. Found a podcast called Behind the Bastard. You should send me that. I love shitty celeb stuff. It helps me to be less parasocial. It's like, it's healthy to be like, okay, all my faves are problematic. You know what I mean? I need to quickly find that beach bag pattern. I don't know how to access. Oh shit. There's an update available. I'm gonna just really quickly do that. Hopefully it... Sick. Okay, please don't automatically start playing. It shouldn't, right? Because, yeah, it won't. I don't know how to access my bookmarks. Oh, I found it right the fuck away. Hell yeah. Okay. So if I could have one of the mods please update the bot on Twitch. The pattern, just exclamation point change pattern. And then that link there, and then the tilde change pattern and that link, so that we can have all of our links updated. And then I'm pretty sure that our content is just on, thank you, Sperry. I think that our content is already on Dreading. If somebody wants to check, that would be sick. I would be very, very appreciative. I'm going to go ahead and stop this
Saturday
music.
Night Live.
No, shush. We're not ready. We're not ready. We haven't even asked for readies yet. Chill out, Dreading. Golly. Okay, I need to look at this pattern briefly to see what size hook I need. G. I have that right here, I think. Nope, this is I. Son of a bitch. My G is downstairs and it is being used, but that's okay. I've gotten very far on my hooded cloak. Literally all I have left to do is make the hood like I'm going to modify it a little bit to make the hood like a little bit drapier in the front, and then I have edging left to do. Didn't report the update, so I was worried that one didn't take. Wait, what? Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay. I have to run downstairs super fast. My vape is down there anyway with my CBD oil, and I want that badly. So if you guys just want to hang tight for like a second, feel free to riot. I'll be right back. Are you rioting? Sorry that took me a second. I went all the way down there and got the hook, and then I forgot that I left my vape down there. So very cool. Hi, G-Man. How are you? What am I making? Pattern in chat for the project details. Hanging in there, G-Man. Thanks for asking. You were instructed to riot. You were. That's true. That's 100% true. All right. Can I get 3 readies in chat, and we will get to getting. Hello? I couldn't even feel that. What? Wait, crimes were committed? What kind of crimes? Hell yeah, good work, Moth. Okay, we're gonna go. We're gonna get to getting. I love gay crimes.
Since 1975, the late night comedy show has been fundamental in introducing the world to some of the most well-respected and hilarious comedians and launching their careers into the stratosphere. Jim Belushi, Chevy Chase, Gilda Radner, Bill Murray, Al Franken, Gilbert Gottfried, Eddie Murphy, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Billy Crystal, Martin Short, Joan Cusack, John Lovitz, Dana Carvey, Mike Myers, Chris Rock, David Spade, Chris Farley, and Adam Sandler are just some of the men and women whose careers were launched by the Saturday night staple. When SNL began, it was groundbreaking, as airing a live comedy show featuring completely untested and unheard of comedians was risky. All of the comedians were known within their circles, with most having been in the comedy space for years.
Very
Many were a part of
interesting.
various comedy troupes around the
Slay-
U.S. and had
intéressant.
been nearly famous multiple times over. They were struggling actors and actresses who enjoyed making people laugh so much they went out of their way to perform whenever they could. In certain spaces, on certain days, they were famous in their own right, but they had yet to be given a real chance to shine. That
I'm
is,
sorry, I
until
have to
Lorne
pause
Michaels
this for a
gave them
second.
chance.
This is the most confusing. I don't know if like my brain is shutting off. I need help understanding this. I need help understanding this first row. I'm pasting it now. So chain 43 and then do 3 half doubles in the second chain from the hook. Mark. I'm so confused. Maybe if I just do it. It's a mini shell to start for sure. Does this make perfect sense to you, Moth? Also, should I just do 43? Should I do a foundation chain of 43 half double crochet? Hi, Haley Bear. How are you? I feel like I should do... It's setting you up to make a really long oval. Okay. If I wanted to do a foundation row, do you know how many I would want to do? I do this all the time too. I don't know. Like, I'm just having a really hard time making sense out of this one. Sorry, gang, that we're pausing here. I have to understand the material if I'm going to make it. You know what I mean? Can you half double 3 in the same stitch in a half double, like in the foundation? I don't think that you can. Oh, time to hydrate. Don't mind if I do. Thanks for looking out for me. Appreciate you, bud. I don't think that I can, but I think I just want to start with a foundation row anyway. And then I can half double all the way. So it has to be chains. You'll work down one side of the chain. Okay, I see what's happening. Yeah. I get you. I would be able to foundation, but I just don't know how many it needs to be. But it's fine. I won't do it. I won't do it. I'm not prepared to do that kind of math right now. Whatever. I'll just chain. It's fine. No. That's so super okay. I appreciate you a whole lot. Thank you. I think that I'll be fine.
The network didn't trust that Lorne Michaels
Thank you so
and a
much
group
for
of
your
funny
help.
men and women
You
could
guys,
be able to toe the line
you're amazing,
on
and I love
television
ya.
of what was appropriate. And for the first few years, the show existed in a state of constant limbo. Would it be canceled?
Nice.
Would it be renewed? Were they going too far or not far
I love
enough?
you too. I love you very
Yearly,
much.
regardless of the ratings, Lauren would sit down with the executives at NBC and fight for the show
Okay.
to stay on
So
the
we're
air.
chaining
It seemed that the
43.
higher-ups didn't understand or didn't want to understand. But given only to Lauren's powers of persuasion, the show would become a pop culture linchpin. Despite the chaos happening behind the scenes, the energy around the show was
fucking
electric for everyone involved. The constant
computer.
threat
I need a new
of being
computer
shut
so bad.
down kept cast members on their toes, and the writers turned in some of their best work. If they were going to go out, they wanted to make sure they were doing what they believed in. But it wasn't just the work that made the behind the scenes so hectic. Cast members went from relatively unknown to celebrities overnight and were able to transfer their comedy chops into mainstream movie success. It was often joked about that 1 year on SNL was all you need to make it in Hollywood as a comedian, because surviving that meant you were tried and tested. There was no better job to have on your resume as a comedian, said Jan Hooks, because they throw everything in the kitchen sink at you every week. If you handle one episode of SNL, you can handle any movie set. We were changing sketches 5 minutes before they aired live. We were dealing with celebrity temper tantrums, all while running on nearly no sleep. Everything else I have done since has been easy, said John Mulaney. For as many stars that have graced the cast list in the 47 years SNL has been on the air, there have been very few tragedies. Most have gone on to enjoy a lifetime of success in their chosen arena, and have continued to make the world laugh for the duration of their careers. However, today we are covering the case of a man who was cut down in what would have been the prime of his career, Phil Hartman. Welcome back to another episode of Dreading, brought to you today by our Patreon. This case is one of the most senseless deaths I've ever reported on, and unfortunately, a lot of information around this case has been misreported, given how sensationalized it was at the time. The media really took the bare bones of the story and ran with it, creating and spreading unsubstantiated rumors for years, which has left the Hartman family in a state of distress. There are various stories that have spread about what happened to Phil, as well as his private
I
life,
had to just
that only came out
concentrate on
after his
counting.
death, which I will not be giving any credence
Hello,
to out
Weekend
of
Storm.
respect.
Yeah, I take
The
weekends
research I
off.
did for this case mostly included
Friday,
listening to the
Saturday, and
audiobook,
Sunday.
You Might Remember Me,
Streaming
by
on
Mike
Fridays
Thomas on Audible,
literally
which was
harms
written
my
about
channel.
Phil
It tells the
Hartman's
algorithm
entire
that nobody
life,
watches
as well as
me,
Live from
so
New
it
York,
doesn't,
the
like,
complete
advertise
uncensored
me,
history
if that
of
makes
Saturday
sense.
Night Live. If you're interested in learning more about this case or about Saturday Night Live in general, I highly suggest reading or listening to these books. The stories throughout paint a well-rounded
Okay,
picture
there
of
we
him
go.
and what occurred the night he was killed. This video, like the vast majority of my uploads, has been copyrighted by a third party, given that the
This is
footage
gonna be
I
a
used
really
to fill
good-sized
throughout,
bag.
which means
I'm very
I do not
excited
earn
about
any
it.
money from this video. And if there are ads on it, they are placed by a third party who claimed the footage.
Yes,
In
we
this
are
case,
watching January
NBC.
6 hearings
If you would
again
like to
tomorrow
support
during the
channel,
day.
Please
They're
consider
at
subscribing to my
2 p.m.
Patreon,
my time, I
linked
think.
below. If you like true crime
So 1
content
p.m.
and want to see
Eastern.
more of it, please consider subscribing or liking this video, as it helps me in the
3
algorithm.
half
If
double
there is a
crochet
case
and
you would like to
second
see me
chain from
cover,
hook.
feel free to leave it in the comments down below or email me, as I am always open to your suggestions. With all that said, let us begin. Phil Hartman was the kind of kid who always went the extra mile to get a laugh. He was the guy who, with very little provocation, would go on a 10-minute comedic monologue over something as simple as applesauce and leave everyone in stitches. But to say that was his destiny would be a lie. Phil was born September 24th, 1948, in Brantford, Ontario, to his parents Doris and Rupert Hartman. He was the middle child of the family, being the fourth kid out of 8 total children. And because of that, Phil had to work hard to get the attention he so thoroughly desired from his parents. His siblings recalled that their parents, though loving and supportive, had very little time to give to them, which often left them feeling unseen. Their father worked
God, I
tirelessly
suck at
to keep a
everything.
roof over
I'll be
their
right
head as a
fucking back.
salesman, and was doing all he could to make sure they had food on the table. Meanwhile, their mother was always trying to find ways to make money while taking care of the day-to-day. His siblings went on to say that unless you were going above and beyond, positively or negatively, you weren't being considered very much. His younger sister, Sarah Jane, required around-the-clock care from Doris and the family, as she had Angelman syndrome, a rare genetic disorder that is characterized by delayed development, intellectual disability, severe speech impairment, and problems with movement and balance. At the time, Angelman syndrome wasn't widely known, and there were very few options when it came to care. The family had considered putting Sarah Jane in a facility where they would be better equipped to support her needs. However, they weren't able to find a facility that they felt was good enough. This led to them taking on all her medical and physical needs, which left the family with even less money and time to give to each other. When Sarah was born, Phil was only 3 years old, and in his mind, a lot of Sarah's disability was his fault. He couldn't wrap his head around the idea that
Hi,
her
Zombie Broccoli.
diagnosis had nothing to do with him, and when his mother was too exhausted from taking care of her to pay attention to him, he
Woof.
internalized
There's
that
not even
thought,
any books or
feeling
anything.
as though he would never truly be worthwhile. This deep need for validation that he was not getting from his family led Phil to comedy. As he was growing up, he realized that academically, he wasn't going to beat his brothers and sisters, who had all gotten A's in school. In sports, he felt like he would never beat his All-American jock older brother. He needed his own outlet, something that he could be recognized for. And the moment he was able to make his entire family laugh, he felt a rush like he had never felt in his life. The feeling of validation that swept over him was something that he'd never experienced before, and he was going to follow that as far as it would take him. In
Okay, so
school,
now we just
that led him
half
to being
double all the
voted
way down,
class
and then we
clown by
six
his
half
high school
double in the
graduating
very
class,
final
which
one?
also included future Manson
Yeah.
family member Lynette Squeaky Fromay. He had been the bane of most of his teachers' existence,
I
as he
see
would
what's
use their
going on
classes as a workshop for his comedy. He would riff on the different subjects, and his jokes would never fail to get laughs. Phil's need for validation didn't just apply to his love of
So,
making
yeah,
people
I would've-
laugh. He never felt as if he
I'm
truly
tempted
fit
to
in where he was, and would constantly put on
restart this and
different
do the
hats in
foundation
order to
chain, because
try
it will
and
just be
find where he
easier
would belong. He
to
would
work
take up
with
different societal
than, like, a
roles,
regular
like that of
ass
the
chain
stoner, the
in
rocker
this
dude,
fucking
the
yarn
athlete, and immerse himself deeply in that
particular.
character. He would take on the personality of the people
It would
he
just
was
be
around,
41
trying
instead
to
of
find people
43.
he felt like understood him. But each time, he would feel like an imposter. Most who knew him as a fun-loving, spirited guy who knew when to pull back on a joke before it went too far. The guy who would do almost anything
Not
to
even a
make people
bathroom in my
smile
room. I gotta go
and
down
brighten
one
their
floor to
days.
use it and a
But few
shower.
knew how
Damn,
deep
that
and introspective
sucks.
Phil
I'm so
actually
sorry
was.
to hear that.
His longtime childhood friend was able to recall only one
Whatever,
instance
let's see if we
when he
can
saw
get
what
through
he
this, and if
described
we
as
have
the
trouble,
real
then
Phil.
I'll start it
The
over.
real Phil, he said, was withdrawn and curious about the universe. Life and death fascinated him, and it was only in small moments that Phil was truly comfortable with the people around him that he would allow his mask to fall and give way to who he actually was. Phil's need for validation, his incredible ability to find the humor in anything, and his deep introspection led him to being a big hit amongst the girls. He was always able to make them laugh, and though he didn't outwardly appear to be romantic, he would write every one of his girlfriends deep, poetic love letters, professing his feelings and stating how in awe of their beauty he was.
Jesus.
One of his high school girlfriends, Kathy Costa, would later attest to the fact that though he had a poet's
That is a
hand
million
and would write her
percent
some
the
of the
way
most
to make
beautiful
me fall
words
in love
as a
with you.
boyfriend, he could be quite withholding. He liked the chase and the dramatics of love,
Make
and the
me
highs
laugh
of being together,
and
and the lows of being
say
apart. He
things
needed to feel
prettily.
needed by the other person, lest he feel he was being ignored or pushed to the side. And his constant seeking of validation from other people often led him to leaving romantic partners before they could leave him. But he was never aggressive or demanding. Instead, he would become incredibly withdrawn. If he felt as if his needs weren't being met, or if he was being pushed to the side, he would close himself off emotionally, becoming detached to his partner without so much as an explanation as to why. Many of his friends noted the same thing, as Phil responded to stressful situations by emotionally detaching, leaving the other person to figure things out on their own. Lisa Strain would go on to state that Phil would disappear emotionally. Phil's body would be there, but he would be in his own world. That passivity made you crazy. To many who witnessed Phil's emotional detachment in moments of high stress,
is actually
it felt as
a
if
lot
he didn't
easier to
care
work with
and would
than
just
I
give up on
suspected it would
things
be.
when they got difficult. But to those
So
who
I
knew
don't think
him
that we're gonna have to
best,
start
it
it
was
over.
clear
I
that
think it would look nicer
confrontation
if
and
we
high
did, but
stress was
it's
too much
fine.
for him. In times of great emotion, he would lose his words and be unable to properly communicate. Only after detaching and getting space would he be able to properly explain himself, though most of the time it would take years for him to do so. After high school, Phil briefly attended college to pursue a degree in art instead of pursuing one in acting. He had seen his brother John pursue acting himself, only for nothing to come
This
of
is
it.
gonna look
And he
sick
wanted
with
to
this
make
yarn, I
sure he
think.
had something
I'm
to
really
fall
excited
back
about
on.
it.
He was incredibly artistically
Thank you
inclined,
for
having
saying
drawn
so, J-Rod.
cartoons for his high school paper, but felt like, once again, it was a mask he wore to conceal what he truly wanted to do. A mask that would quickly fall off when his brother and a group of friends created a live concert venue called the Kaleidoscope. John, the brother that had unsuccessfully pursued acting, had found work at a talent agency that focused solely on music, where he worked with the likes of Sonny and Cher. But that didn't stop him from dreaming bigger. With friends Skip Taylor and Gary Essert, Phil's brother bought the property and brought their vision to life. The venue would serve as the backdrop
I'm
for
very
some of
hungry.
the
I'm
most
fasting.
atrocious shows of all time.
Fast
And
on
though it was
Mondays,
only open
Wednesdays,
for
and
6
Fridays
months,
now.
became one of the most popular venues of all time. Bands like Jefferson Airplane,
It's getting
The
easier,
Grateful
but
Dead,
it still
and
is a little bit
Genesis all
miserable.
graced the Kaleidoscope stage, and Phil was at the center of it.
It
He
makes me eat a
regularly
lot
attended
less
concerts and made friends with some of the most famous
on
bands
the
of
days
all
that I'm
time.
not fasting.
Using his
Like I
comedy
get
chops,
or
Phil
full
would
a
often
lot
pretend
easier. It's
to be
nice.
characters at these shows. Sometimes he would pretend to be a roadie so he could get backstage. Other times he would convince girls that he was the security detail for his friend, who he claimed was a famous stuntman that had just finished a day of shooting some
How's
movie.
my energy level?
People were
Low,
drawn
but
to him
I have
and wanted to be
naturally
around
really
him
low
just
energy
to see what
levels.
he would do next.
It is
And
a
when the
little
venue
bit lower than
inevitably
normal,
shut
but it's
down
getting better
after
as
only
time
a
goes
couple
on.
months in operation, one of the bands that had taken a liking to Phil offered him a job as a roadie. He toured with the band, living with them as they traveled around, until finally he settled down with his first wife, Gretchen Lewis. Together they lived at the Foo House, a home that was owned by the band, where groupies came in and out as they pleased. For Gretchen, it was a difficult time, but eventually the pair was able to get their own place, albeit with the help of her father. After about 2 years together, they would divorce. Neither had any animosity towards each other, and in fact, Gretchen would recall them both just feeling like it had been the best thing to do. According to her, the relationship just kind of ended. No fanfare, no anger. One day it was just over, and that was that. After his divorce, Phil went back to school and got a degree in graphic art, and his brother hired him at his music production company as their only full-time graphic designer. He went on to make multiple iconic album covers, including the artwork featured on the Poco album Legend, and created the logo for
He needs
Crosby,
to hate all
Stills,
of the
and Nash
Republicans if
that
he's
they
sick
still
of these
use today.
diesel
Phil was
prices.
supporting himself by doing what he loved, but still he felt
Each and
unfulfilled.
every
He
one of
loved
them
art and
voted
design
against
and felt
gas
incredibly
relief
proud
bills.
to put his own stamp on the music he loved. But he had gotten his degree
Not a
as a fallback.
single
What he really wanted to
Republican
do was
voted in
act
favor
and
of
make
the
people
American
laugh.
people
But
receiving
he
a
felt
break
as
on
if
gas.
there was no money to be made in that. Being a working comedian was hard, but
Finish
being a failed
line!
comedian was just embarrassing. For the most part, he got by entertaining the music acts that came
That's
through his
funny.
office day in and day out. He would make up characters on the spot, riff on things going on in pop culture, and bring everyone to tears. But when he was left on his own to create, he found himself unfulfilled. One night after work, he and a friend went out to see a comedy troupe called The Groundlings at a small theater. Citing an issue backstage, the group was running late with the performance. Sensing mild upset in the audience, Phil decided to spring into action and entertain the crowd
It
with
just
his
cost
own
me
comedy
$60
silence for about
to
15
fill the
minutes.
smart
The
car
group
tank.
could hear the laughter from backstage, and many members looked out to see what they described as a random-looking guy doing his own bits. Some members were perturbed, thinking a wayward comedian was trying to use their stage as an open mic, but even more were entertained, finding his improv skills to be top-notch. After the Groundlings performed that night, Phil inquired about joining, after serving as a sort of opening act for them, and making the entire audience burst out laughing. He realized that he might have what it takes to be a comedian the way he always wanted. He was informed that joining the group would mean taking years of improv classes at his own expense, and immediately
Kia Soul
joined.
takes 50 right
Unbeknownst
now,
to him,
yeah.
he was
It's
well on his
too
way to
much.
becoming one of the most well-respected and loved comedians of all time. His time with the Groundlings has become something of myth, as everyone who knew him was always in awe of his ability. Most newcomers to the group would struggle with their first attempts at improv, feeling too self-conscious to play along with the more established members'
I'm gonna
skits,
pull
but not
these
Phil. He came armed
little
with various
knots apart
characters
here
who he had personified for years.
before moving
He
on.
could be anyone they needed him to be, and even small lines felt funny when he said them. The years Phil had spent adopting different lifestyles and characteristics in his day-to-day life had paid off. and he could seamlessly transform from a smarmy businessman who thought too highly of himself to a laid-back surfer dude who smoked too much pot to keep his eyes open. And what's more, he had the natural ability to make every character feel real. At the same time, Phil met and married his second wife, Lisa Strain. Phil would go on to state that Lisa and him were soulmates. She was a challenge for him and kept him on his toes in ways that others hadn't. He described her in letters as a firecracker and someone who could bring anyone to their knees with her words. She was smart, funny, and beautiful, and she provided him with a sense of belonging that he hadn't had prior. However, much like with his previous relationships, when problems arose, Phil retreated. Lisa would call his emotional detachment out and found herself going out of her way to try and get his attention back on her. She would dress provocatively when they were together, going out of her way to get his attention, and he would still reject her advances. He seemed resigned and checked out of the relationship. And after months, Lisa began to feel like he didn't love her anymore. This wasn't the case, however. The two lacked the ability to properly communicate about their feelings. Lisa wanted attention and affection, and Phil didn't know what he needed, and was entirely incapable of expressing himself in a way that Lisa was able to understand. And so, after 3 years together, the pair would break up, but Phil would never stop loving her. Despite the hardship in his romantic life, Phil quickly established himself within the group as being the top comedic dog, which was high praise, given that at the time the group featured comedians Paul Rubens, Cassandra Peterson, better known as Elvira Mistress of the Dark, and John Lovitz. His sketches and ideas were put at the top
This dude
of every
hung out with
pile,
some heavy
and every time he was
hitters.
on stage, he was guaranteed to get laughs. But after a couple of years, Phil began to get disheartened. Over the years, he watched other members of the Groundlings get incredible professional opportunities and leave the group to have successful careers of their own. Paul Rubens left the group after the character he had made, Pee Wee Hermans, became a star in his own right, with a movie and television series. Phil, being one of the people who helped shape Pee Wee as a character, wrote part of the screenplay for Pee Wee's Big Adventure and had a significant role in
So now
Pee
we
Wee's
just
Playhouse,
go back
but he couldn't
down
help
the
but
line
feel left behind.
here,
This ended
and we
with
need
a
to do
dissolution
3
of
more on
Rubens
this
and
side
Hartman's
to match the
friendship,
6 that
one
were
that
made
would
on
never
this
be
side.
repaired.
So that was
Later on,
really
Lauren
confusing to read
Michaels
at first,
came
but
to
I
the
think that
Groundlings
from
show,
here on,
looking for
it
new
should
talent
be
for the
much
SNL
easier to
cast.
follow
The
this
group was shocked
pattern.
when he scouted
very
Lovitz
confused by it,
over
but it's
Hartman,
okay.
and even more shocked that Lovitz didn't try to bring Hartman with him. Hartman felt like his career had hit its apex, and that he had
I
already gone
can't
as far
see
as he
point
would be able
redemptions
to
right
go.
now, so if
The
any
small
happen,
parts in
please let me
movies
know.
and shows and some voice acting work he had under his belt left him feeling as if he had ultimately failed in his pursuit of fame, and he was close to giving up. That was until he met Bryn Omdahl. If Bryn Omdahl was alive today, she would be increasingly bitter that her celebrity status is only due to her attachment to her husband and the murder she committed. Most of the reporting around Bryn's life was done through the lens of what she would go on to do to Phil. Though details are sparse about her early life, they are illuminating. Bryn was born Vicky Jo Omdahl on April 11, 1958, in small-town Minnesota. She was always a go-getter and the kind of girl who wanted more for herself and thought she deserved to have it. Growing up in the tiny town with a middle-class family, she felt as if she was destined for the bright lights of Hollywood, and she was simply better than those around her. She grew to be a statuesque beauty with bright blonde hair, who towered over her peers. People would go on to describe her as an all-American beauty and the ultimate girl next door. Many who encountered her immediately told her she should be a model and go into show business, and she loved the praise. Vicky Jo would go on to drop out of high school to marry her longtime boyfriend, Douglas Torfin. However, the marriage would sour with her growing need for recognition. Torfin wanted to start the next phase of their life. He wanted to settle down and have children, but Vicky was more interested in her career. According to those who knew her at this point in her life, she became obsessed with the idea that she was going to be famous, and there was virtually nothing that anyone could do to stop her. After 9 years of marriage, Vicky Jo left Douglas and moved to Minneapolis to start her modeling career. After some middling success in Minneapolis, she felt confident moving all the way across the country to California, more specifically Hollywood. Everyone around her told her that she had exactly the right look to be a star, and after taking a few acting courses, she felt as if it would be a breeze. Before leaving, she was told that her name didn't quite fit the high fashion model aesthetic she was going for. and didn't feel quite Hollywood enough. Thus, she made the decision to change it to Brendan, then later settling on Bryn. She felt the name was more exotic and alluring, and noted excitedly that no one knew any other stars with that name. In Minnesota, Bryn had been a big deal. People paid attention to her, and she was able to get what she wanted with relative ease. People stopped and stared at her everywhere she went, and she was given special treatment because of that. But in Hollywood, she had a hard time. Despite her natural beauty and flirty nature, she found that tall, pretty blondes weren't exactly rare there, and she fit in more than stood out. Her friends had been right to say that she had the Hollywood look, but so did everyone else in Hollywood. After a short while, she got some work as a swimsuit model, but rarely, if ever, got callbacks for the acting roles she went out for. But her luck would change when a longtime friend would set her up on a blind date with aspiring actor and comedian Phil Hartman. From the moment she laid eyes on him, Bryn knew he was the one, or at least that's what she told her friends. She thought he was hysterical, and often paired his enthusiasm for his projects. She believed in him fiercely before he was super successful, and was often his loudest cheerleader, which was something he had deeply craved his entire life. That being said, when she met Phil, he wasn't necessarily unsuccessful. He had written a portion of Pee-wee's Big Adventure, had gotten multiple guest roles on various shows, and was doing multiple voice acting roles. He was earning a great living and making a name for himself in the business.
100%.
However, his star power was still on the rise when Bryn met him. Despite dating Bryn, Phil still loved and was deeply emotionally connected to his second wife, Lisa. Though they had broken up and been apart for years by the time Phil met Bryn, Phil still believed that he and Lisa had been soulmates. Their relationship, though it had fallen apart, was one that he felt he could never replicate, because she was able to bring the real him out. Though their issues had caused them to split, he still considered her the true love of his life. Bryn supported him and encouraged him not to quit pursuing acting and comedy. She empathized with him about their lack of substantial parts, but she reminded him that compared to her, he was doing brilliantly. After some coaxing from her and his peers, Phil continued with the Groundlings, and in 1986, he would go on to join the cast of SNL. Despite her being outwardly supportive of Phil and pushing him to continue his creative pursuits, many of his friends thought there was something off about her, even early into the relationship. Cassandra Peterson, the actress behind Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, spoke about it, stating that something about Bryn always felt off. Whenever she was around Phil's friends, there was a sense that she was acting, and not acting well, to try and endear herself to them. She seemed desperate for people to like her, and always seemed to be working an angle. When Phil told Cassandra that he planned on marrying Bryn after a year of dating, she recoiled and told him that she thought it was a bad idea. Cassandra told Phil that there was something wrong with Bryn, and he was rushing in, but he would hear none of it. She went on to say
her Elvira.
that had been
That's
the
what
only
she
time
wants to be
she had ever
called.
seen him upset with her, and they didn't talk for months after, likely due in part to the fact that at the time, Bryn was 2 months pregnant. With Phil's star on the rise, and having been so supportive of his creative endeavors, one would assume that Bryn would have been happy with her husband's newfound fame, but the opposite was true. The reality was that Bryn had been supportive
talking about the Bryn I know,
when
but
she
yeah,
had been in the
okay,
same
my
boat
bad.
as Phil.
Well, it
They were
feels
both
like this
struggling,
lady is
and
the
so
same
telling
as
him
her.
to keep going wasn't hard, but watching him gain all the success and fame she had wanted was difficult for her. At first, she prodded him to get her on SNL as well. She told him that it would be an easy sell. They were a couple after all, and if he was going to have a scene flirting or kissing with someone, who better to do it than with his wife? A husband and wife comedy team had yet to be done on SNL, and she implored him to ask Lorne to cast her. The only issue was she wasn't really funny. Instead, Phil was able to get her a very brief spot in the opening credits. In one shot, Phil is announced and seen seated, flirting with a blonde woman at a table. The woman fussing with her hair and earrings was in fact Bryn, and she would go on to tell her friends that getting that one couple of seconds had been difficult, as she kept turning and smiling at the camera. She had been told a couple times not to do so, as she was just an extra, and the entire purpose of the shot was to showcase Phil, but she saw an opportunity and tried to take it. She insistently prodded Phil to get her a position on the show, and Phil, trying to keep her happy, would go to Lorne and the other castmates and try and talk her up. When she came to the set, she would try to impress everyone there with her own comedy chops, without realizing how uncomfortable she was making them. Finally, when she
no.
realized that she wasn't going to be allowed on the show, and that Phil's star was still rising, and it didn't mean that hers was too, she got angry. She became increasingly jealous and over-the-top vitriolic towards Phil, often putting down
Sorry, I did
certain
not realize that
achievements
I
and
was kind of
belittling
off
him
camera
in
there.
order to make herself feel equal to him
Don't
in the
ever hesitate
relationship.
to yell at me
On
when
certain
that happens.
occasions, she would become physically abusive towards him, and multiple hair and makeup people who worked with Phil at SNL would recall him coming into work with scratches and bruises on his face. On at least one occasion, when she came to visit Phil at work, she decided to sit on the laps of every other male castmate and try to kiss
Gross.
them. Many who were there recalled the experience as being embarrassing, noting that Bryn had stuck her tongue in the ears of multiple men in front of her husband,
That's
who was trying to laugh
disgusting.
it off. It was
Poor
obvious to
dude.
everyone there that she was trying to get a rise out of him and make him angry, but Phil stayed calm, trying to defuse the situation the best he could. Multiple castmates would overhear phone calls between the couple, where she would lay into him about his career, how he wasn't home enough, and how he didn't really care about her, and he would simply accept it, never arguing back past telling her he was doing his job and trying his best. In letters he would write to his friends, he would talk about the abuse, and how when Bryn got angry, he would shut down emotionally, and how that would just make things worse. He relayed that when he got mad, he went into his own world, and she would throw grenades and bombs to get him out. He
Knowing
meant
the
this
outcome of the
literally,
story
as
makes all this seem
oftentimes,
so
in
much more
order to
scary.
escape
Yeah.
Bryn's wrath, he would simply go to sleep.
I mean, knowing
But
what's
the abuse
coming
wasn't just
definitely
leveled
makes
at Phil.
foreshadowing
Lisa
more
and
intense,
Phil
hey?
had reconnected after their breakup and would talk regularly via letter. Both had moved on and were with other people, but in one instance, when talking to Bryn, Phil relayed the fact that he believed Lisa was his soulmate. This angered Bryn to no end, and she repeatedly brought it up in arguments.
To be
After the birth
honest,
of their first child, Sean,
I wouldn't
Lisa
want to be
sent
with
a
somebody
letter
who
of
thought that they had a
congratulations,
soulmate that
saying the
wasn't
pair
me.
would make
You
amazing
know what I mean?
parents, and she would be
I can't
there
be mad
should
at her
they
for
need
that.
anything. Upon receiving this letter, Bryn was furious. She
rest of
believed
it,
that Lisa was trying
she's
to
the
make a pass
asshole,
at Phil,
but-
and that this letter was proof of an affair. In response, she sent a 3-page letter threatening Lisa and telling her that if she ever spoke to Phil or her again, she would kill her. This letter included graphic depictions of what she would do to Lisa should she see her in person, and ended with telling her to watch her back. When Lisa received the letter, she was terrified. She told Phil about it, thinking that he couldn't have allowed this to happen and needed to know what kind of person his wife was. However,
so
when she
we're
told him about the letter,
doing
he simply
spirals
responded
instead of
that she should
joining.
have seen the first draft, as the letter she received was toned down. Bryn was paranoid about every woman and man that Phil spent his time around. She wrote the
Two
same
half
kind of
doubles
vitriol-filled
in next
letter
3
to his castmate,
stitches.
Jan Hooks, although
Okay.
he forbade her to send it, telling her that would potentially lead to issues for him at work. Hooks and Hartman were often paired in scenes together and called each other their comedy spouses.
J-Rod,
For
that's
Jan,
hilarious.
Phil was the person who would ease her anxiety during shows and would often offer her support before anyone else could think to. They were close friends, something which Bryn detested. At the same time, Bryn hated most of the men that Phil spent his time around as well. Because of his sensitivity and introspection, Bryn would often accuse Phil of being gay. He wasn't, but she grew more and more paranoid the more time he spent with other people. Bryn's insecurities about the relationship
God, she
didn't
just
just pertain to the
sucks,
people
hey?
who Phil surrounded himself with. When he shut down emotionally due to the stress of their fighting, she, like Lisa had before her, thought Phil was no longer attracted to her. She would dress up to get his attention, and when that didn't work, she got plastic surgery to make herself look more desirable. She told their friends that it had been a mutual decision, and that Phil loved the changes she made, but he denied this. Privately, he told friends that he had told her not to get the surgeries multiple times, but she insisted he would like her better if she got them. She also thought that the surgeries would make her more employable, and the casting agents would find her more attractive, but she continued not to get work. Shortly after the birth of Sean, Bryn gave birth to their second child, Burgeon. Bryn was their full-time caretaker, and when she went out for auditions, she hired a nanny. Her only prerequisite when hiring was that the person be, as she put it, fat and unattractive. That way Phil wouldn't pay attention to them. On multiple
Jesus.
occasions, if Phil stopped to speak to their nannies or any help she had hired, they would immediately be fired. The relationship between Bryn and Phil was beyond toxic, but they tried to keep it together. Phil didn't want another divorce, as he didn't want to divorce any of his ex-wives. It had always been them who ultimately ended the relationship. However, he knew no matter who decided to end the marriage, should he divorce Bryn, it wouldn't be as amicable as his last two. For the entirety of his duration on SNL, Phil would talk about Bryn wanting a divorce every other week, and he joked that she would take him for everything he had if she had the chance, but most around him knew he wasn't joking. After 8 seasons, Phil left Saturday Night Live. He had become known as the glue that kept the show together, and was one of, if not the most revered castmate of his time. By the time he made the decision to officially leave, he already had a couple irons under the fire, with multiple creators pitching him his own primetime show based around his comedic talents. He worked with a few talented writers, and each time he tried to find a role for Bryn. He would hype up her talents and skill, and while most producers were courteous, they passed on her altogether, fearing that hiring his wife would lead to chaos in the workplace. At one point,
Probably would have
Bryn
been
gave
right.
Phil a script for a show she had written herself and asked him to give it to some executives he knew. She was convinced that she had written the next great American sitcom, and that finally, after years of watching Phil succeed, it would be her turn for the spotlight. However, everyone he showed it to passed on it almost immediately, and Phil apologized to them for wasting their time. He felt as if he was debasing himself, like a schoolboy forced to apologize to a teacher. This only served to anger her more, and she became convinced that Phil had purposely got in the way of her success. While Phil continued
God,
to
she
flourish in his
sucks.
professional life, Bryn began coping with drugs and alcohol, more specifically, cocaine. She would lash out more aggressively against Phil, telling him that he was the reason she had issues, and threatening to get physical with him in front of the kids. Each time he was made aware of her drug use, he would remove the kids from her care entirely, and insist that she go to rehab on his bill. He felt as if her stress and exhaustion was not unlike his own mother, who had a mental breakdown while taking care of his sister. She too had to seek medical treatment for a short while, and in his mind, Bryn was trying to make the best out of a
Hi,
bad
King Alonzi.
situation, like his
Thank you
mother
for
had,
coming in
and
and
he
saying
needed to
hi.
be there for her. But after a couple of trips and her repeatedly acting out in front of the kids, Phil had had enough. In 1998, after Bryn had relapsed once more, Phil sat her down. He hadn't wanted to get a divorce prior, and he wanted more than anything for their relationship to work. But she was putting his kids in danger. He told her that if she continued to use drugs, and if she relapsed once again, he was going to leave her. If that meant quitting acting to take care of the kids by himself, he was going to do it. She was a great mother, he said, when she was sober, but he couldn't trust her when she was using. Bryn relayed to her friends that she knew he was serious, and that this was their last shot. She likewise had gone to the doctor, who had prescribed her Zoloft to deal with her mental health, as she spoke about how stressed and unhappy she had been in the last couple years. The couple was on their last legs. According to friends, they were just trying to get through the month of May together, and were fighting to save the relationship, but neither would see June. On the night of May 27th, 1998, Bryn had plans to meet up with a friend for dinner at Buca de Beppo. She was in high spirits that night, and was nothing if not lovely to everyone she encountered. Her friend, Christine Zander, stated that she was in good spirits, and nursed 2 drinks that night. At one point, Zander went to the bathroom to freshen up, and Bryn took the opportunity to make a call at the payphone in the restaurant. Who she called and what they spoke about is still unknown, but multiple witnesses said her tone seemed to be slightly upset. When she got back to the table, though, she was once again in high spirits. After they finished dinner, Bryn didn't want to go home. Instead, she went over to the home of Ron Douglas, a former boyfriend who she kept in touch with.
Ugh.
Douglas and her would do cocaine with each other on
Yeah.
occasion, much to Phil's chagrin. When Bryn came over, she drank a couple of beers with Ron and spoke to him about her marital issues. She complained about Phil and how detached emotionally he had been. Talked about how he had forbidden her from doing any more coke, and seemed dejected. After a couple hours, Ron told her it would be best if she went back home to the kids, to which Bryn seemed annoyed. Finally, she left and returned home. At no point throughout the night did anyone witness Bryn doing cocaine, and
Okay.
no one reported that she seemed incredibly high or drunk. However, as her toxicology report would later show, she had started using coke again
Okay.
and was incredibly high the entire night.
A lot
It
of
was found
different
out
okays
later that she
happening
had
here.
relapsed earlier that week and had been able
Y'all,
to keep
this
it
yarn
mostly
is so
under
fucking
wraps
pretty, I
from those
can't.
she knew. The following is a summation of events that occurred based on the
You
evidence.
can't really
When
see
Bryn arrived
how
home, her and
positively
Phil got into
glittery
a
this
heated
is.
argument. Although it's impossible to know what about, most speculate
is
that
so-
Phil
this is
saw
so
she was
fucking
high,
pretty.
and he told her he planned to follow through on his threat of leaving with the kids. As the fight began to escalate, Phil did what he had always done and removed himself from the situation, choosing to go to sleep rather than continue to fight with her. This left Bryn to toil in her own thoughts. After he was asleep, Bryn retrieved a .38 caliber handgun she had bought herself for protection and walked into their bedroom where Phil lay asleep. She then shot him 3 times, once between the eyes, once in the throat, and once in the chest. He died instantly in his sleep, without realizing what was going on. His son Sean woke up hearing gunshots, but, having never heard them before, he believed them to be the sound of doors slamming. After killing her husband, Bryn walked about the house, snorting cocaine and drinking. After about an hour or so, she called Ron at 3:25 a.m. and told him that when she came home, she found a note from Phil that read simply, "I'm going out for the night, I'll be back." She asked Ron if she could come back and hang out because she didn't want to be home alone, to which he denied, telling her that she should stay home with her kids. 20 minutes later, Bryn arrived at Ron's house, noticeably intoxicated. She told Ron that she thinks she killed Phil, but doesn't know for sure if she did. Ron, used to her theatrics when she was drunk, didn't believe her. When she showed him the gun she stated she used, he looked it over and thought there was no ammunition missing and told her as much. She began to get sick from the combination of cocaine and alcohol and asked him to call
And
home
probably
just to see
adrenaline.
if Phil would pick up. He did, and grew a bit more concerned when they received no answer. Ron kept Bryn awake for the next 2 hours, worried that if she fell asleep, she would die of an overdose. When she sobered up, the two made their way back to the home, as Bryn continued to state that she had killed Phil. While driving to the home, Bryn called another friend, Judy, and told her that she killed Phil and her life was over. Judy likewise thought she was high and not thinking straight, but Bryn's conviction led her to going over to the Hartman household at 6 a.m. When Ron and Bryn entered the home,
Hey, Rain.
they made their way to the master bedroom. In it lay Phil, deceased on the bed, with multiple bullet wounds visible. Ron was shocked. Had he known that Bryn was serious, he would have gotten medical attention earlier and felt entirely
Finish the
unsure
cosplay.
of how to
Exciting.
proceed.
Feel free to tell
According
it
to
or
him,
show us.
everything seemed like it was moving in slow motion. He didn't know what to do or what was going on, and vaguely heard Bryn in the other room, making another phone call, this time to another friend, telling them she had killed Phil. After shaking off the shock of seeing Phil's dead body, Ron grabbed the nearest phone and called 911. He told them that there had been a shooting and that one person had died. While on the phone with the police, Bryn made her way to the bedroom with Phil, locking herself inside so no one could get to her. She called her sister and told her what she had done, and asked her to take care of the kids for her before hanging up. The police arrived on the scene and removed everyone from the home, including Sean and Burgeon, who had been sleeping. Once the police were at the master bedroom, they called into Bryn, asking for her to open the door for them. Sobbing, Bryn got in bed next to Phil. It was there where she killed herself, the same way she had killed her husband.
Jeez.
The weeks that followed the tragic death of Phil Hartman were incredibly difficult for those who loved him. Not
Sorry, I
only
had
had he
to
been
undo
murdered
this
by the
because
person
I
who he
marked
loved,
this wrong
but
and
the
then
media
lost
had
count.
taken the story and run with it.
This is going to
Every
be
day,
tough because
new
there aren't
tabloids would
defined
speculate
rows, so it's
on
going to
why
be really hard
Bryn
for me to
took
count.
his life.
So I'm going to have to
Some papers
really
stated that
concentrate
he
a
was
lot of
gay
the time.
and put a homophobic spin on his entire life. Others tried to find, quote, the other woman, writing that he had cheated on his wife for years and this is the only reason why she opted to kill him.
need
Many of
some
the
water
initial
real quick.
reports wrote about Phil as if he had a dark, secret double life and tried to paint him in a negative light, to the dismay of everyone who knew him. The Hartmans and their friends spoke about how they would move forward from this tragedy the morning they were
Congratulations, Rain. That's
informed about Phil's
exciting.
passing, and one thing they wanted to make sure of was that they didn't give the media what
Moving
they
is
wanted.
both
In the weeks
fun
that
and
followed,
terrible.
they isolated themselves completely, refusing to go outside or interact with any strangers. Reporters tried to infiltrate their lives and get the inside scoop, but the family stayed tightly
Okay,
knit. Phil's
so-
peers at SNL and those who he worked with on various other projects came forward to honor his life and death with multiple memorial services. Paul Rubens, who had had a falling out with Phil after he left Pee-wee's Playhouse, remarked that he regretted not reconnecting with his friend, and that would be one of the biggest mistakes in his life. Later on, when it was relayed to John Lovitz
There you go.
that it had been Andy Dick who supplied the cocaine Bryn was on the night she killed Phil, Lovitz bashed Dick's head into a bar and told him it was his fault that his friend had died. As for Bryn, her brother Greg remained steadfast that his sister was a deeply troubled and misunderstood person who was not in full control of her mental faculties when she killed Phil and then herself.
Okay,
Despite
so,
her demons,
we've got
he
to do that
believed
2
her
more
to be a
times,
great mother
so
who only wanted the best for her children
end
and always put them
this
before
part
everyone
of the
else.
pattern right
Greg blamed
here.
her use of the antidepressant Zoloft and said that she had been erroneously prescribed the medication so her doctor could get a kickback.
Yeah, it sounds like she
He
had
went on to
maybe
claim that she was
bipolar
not
instead of
depressed
regular
when she had been prescribed
depression.
the drug, and it was never communicated to her that combining
she was a
Zoloft and
narcissist.
alcohol would increase the negative side effects. Greg went on to sue the makers of Zoloft, and the case was settled in 1999, with Pfizer paying Hartman's children a cash settlement. However, one of the doctors who looked over the case stated that it is unlikely that Greg would have won, given Bryn's erratic behavior prior to her being prescribed the drug. He posited that the case was settled to decrease any negative publicity surrounding their product. John Hartman, Phil's brother, stated that after he received
and
the
then 40
toxicology
stitches.
report
I should
from
put
the
another,
coroner and was
stitch
informed
marker,
that due to the high
actually.
levels of alcohol, cocaine,
Yeah, I should put
and
another
Zoloft
stitch
in her
marker here just so
system,
that I
it
can
was
count back
likely
to
that
40,
she had
but
no
don't let me
idea what
forget
was
to take
going
the
on.
stitch marker
He
out.
immediately forgave
Good night,
her,
Jace.
but
That's
others
okay.
have not been so
You
kind.
take care of
Phil
yourself,
Hartman
bud.
was a wonderful man. Though deeply complicated, he worked hard to make the lives of everyone around him better, and he sought to make the world a happier place. His loss is still felt today and likely will always be felt. Thank you for watching this episode of Dreading. If you like this video, please hit
Oh,
the
fuck,
like
is it
button
already
and
time
consider
for
subscribing.
commercial?
If you are able, please
think it might
consider
be.
supporting us via Patreon, which is linked in the description below. Have a great day and remember to stay safe.
Okay, y'all. Yeah, it is. It's time. Everybody hang tight. We'll be right back. I need to...
For
the
6
next-
whole
oh my God,
days.
why?
Spree
Why you don't just do the things I ask you to. Computer. I need a new computer so fucking bad. Y'all want to do Kevin Spacey or Sid and Nancy? Vote yay for Kevin Spacey. Vote nay for Sid and Nancy. And I'll count those when I get back. Or if one of the mods wants to run a poll, that's fine too. I kind of don't care. We're very loosey-goosey today. Anyway, we'll be right back. Don't go nowhere. Howdy. We're back. Looks like everybody wants Kevin Spacey. So we'll just do that. We'll just do that. That's fine with me if it's fine with y'all. Let's go ahead and turn off the music. And move back to live. And if I could just get 4 readies in chat, we'll go ahead and get this show on the road. This is going to start playing before I can... Yeah. Every goddamn time. Every goddamn time without fail. I didn't pee and I should have, but I can definitely make it. I can hold it. I can. All right, we got all the readies we need. Fuck yeah.
Method acting
Let's
is
go.
a system of training and practice developed by a variety of dramatic artists with the goal of encouraging authentic and expressive performances
Love me
through
some
connecting
cleansing
with,
breaths.
understanding, and feeling a character's underlying drive and emotions. Based in and around the Stanislavski system, the method form of acting forces the actor to take on the character 24/7 in everything they do. That way they can better understand who they are portraying and why they are making the decisions they make. Only then can they really accurately portray their subjects, as they are really showcasing who they are. In literature based around the method form of acting, the difference between method acting and regular acting can be reduced to one singular question. Regular actors are constantly having to ask themselves, what would motivate me, the actor, to behave in the way the character does? Which, it is argued, separates themselves from their roles and adds a layer of falsehood to their performance. Rather, method actors who live within their roles are asking the question, given the particular circumstances of the play, how would I behave? What would I do? How would I feel?
I was making
and
a
how would I
ballerina
react?
top. It's
Over the
finished
past
now.
couple of years,
making
with the
a
rise of
market
method
bag
actors
now.
like Jared Leto using the
If you
method as a way
do
to harass his
pattern
coworkers
in
and force the
chat,
production
exclamation
to cater to
point,
his most
chatter
insane
in-
requests,
pattern in
and
chat,
other
geez
thespians
Louise.
like Robert Pattinson
Exclamation
speaking out against the
point,
practice, the
pattern
entire form
in
of
chat.
acting has come under fire. An actor should be able to portray a character without having to be the
It
character
will show you the
in their
project
personal
details.
life. But where does one draw
And take
the
you to
line?
the free
How do
pattern
you
as
play
well.
a villain without being
It's
one yourself?
beautiful,
And
Lorraine.
why
It's
does
really
Hollywood make
gorgeous.
so many excuses for this kind of behavior? Today, we are going to be covering the case of a man who made millions off of portraying some of cinema's most
so,
sadistic and evil characters,
just
all the
40
while hiding his own actions
regular
in plain
half
sight.
doubles.
Welcome back to another episode of Dreading, this time brought to you by our patrons over at Patreon. Today we are going to be covering the case of Kevin Spacey and how he has been plagued with allegations of inappropriate and criminal behavior since the start of his career. This case was requested by over 35 subscribers of this channel, but if there is a topic or case you would like to see me cover next, please leave it in the comments down below. If you want the submission to stay private, feel free to send me an email at the email in the description down below. This video, like so many others of ours, has been copyright claimed and demonetized, meaning that all the ad revenue from this video goes to a third party. Lately,
Okay.
some of our videos
So
have been blocked
we're not
and
going to be making any
privatized by the
money on
platform,
this stream
though
today
luckily, they've
from
been able to
ads
go
or
back
anything.
up. If you want to
So
have
if
full
y'all
access
want
to
to
every
check out
single
my
one of my
Patreon, that
videos,
would be great.
please
Check out
consider
their
checking out my
Patreon
Patreon,
because
which is linked
they're
below.
incredible.
All of my videos are available there.
I
in
also
their
have
original
my
forms,
Throne wish
and there
list
will
and
always be
several other
copies
ways
of my
that you can
videos
support me
available there to
listed
be
in the
watched
panels
should
below the
anything
stream.
happen to this
Please,
channel. To be precise,
if
if YouTube
you're
were to completely
feeling
demonetize
givey,
this channel, I would still venture to make content. But
I
if
would
you
love
wanted to
some
support my
subs
endeavor,
if you're not
Patreon is
using them,
available to you. With all of
etc.
that said, let us begin.
But of course, don't feel obligated if you can't.
Kevin Spacey is a celebrity who prided himself on maintaining a certain amount of secrecy around his life. Almost every interview and article written about his life and career, a great deal of focus was given to why his personal life was so hidden and shadowy, to which Kevin would always respond that he wanted to be known for his acting only, and that his real life was his own. Many of his fans and colleagues appreciated this, and respected the actor for it. It isn't hard to find comments about how Kevin's attitude and temperament about his acting is like that of an older Hollywood star, and how his dedication to his craft, and not public spectacle, was something to be aspired to. But much like an old Hollywood star, Kevin used his secrecy to hide some of his more heinous behavior. With that in mind, there is very little information about Kevin's early life, as only two sources who have ever spoke about it were Kevin, who only gave vague information, and his brother, Randall, who painted a drastically different picture. Kevin Spacey was born Kevin Spacey Fowler, July 26, 1959. He was born to parents Kathleen and Thomas Fowler, and the home, according to Kevin, was nothing if not normal. Spacey was the youngest of three kids, Julie and Randall Fowler, and was the baby of the group. Kevin would state that his family, and most notably his dad, was very normal and middle class, and his childhood, with the exception of a few tales given during interviews about capers he got into, was entirely unnoteworthy. His brother, Randall Fowler, would deeply disagree with his brother's summation of their early lives, and in 2004
I love funky middle
stated that their
names.
father was a wildly abusive man
God damn
who
it,
assaulted both of them
have
physically
no
and
idea
sexually.
what number I
He
was
went
on.
further to state that his father was a Nazi and collected World War II paraphernalia, and at times used it to beat them. Randall went on to claim that his father cut his mustache to honor Adolf Hitler, and would often go on rants during dinner about the state
That's
of the
fucked
world.
up,
In
man.
an interview Randall gave with the Daily Mail, he would label his father a Nazi child rapist who hated Jews and brutalized the entire family, leaving every
Okay.
member with irreparable mental and physical wounds. For his part, Randall stated that he refused to have his own children for fear that he would pass down any of the abuse or torture his father gave to him, and believed that his childhood was the reason that his marriages and relationships continued to fall apart. His father isolated the family, banning kids from having any friends over or going out on their own. Their house served as a prison for the kids, and Randall alleged that in order to deal with the various abuse he was put through, he wrapped himself in an emotional bubble, hiding his true self from the world. He believed that his brother turned to acting the same way he had turned to impersonations, as fantasizing about being another person was the only real way to cope with what was going on. For his part, his sister Julie has never spoken in defense of her brother or their family, but is reported to have a healthy relationship with Kevin, as she stated he loves her kids and being an uncle. Regardless of which assessment of the Fowler household is correct, remains to be seen, but Kevin would leave the house rather early, as when he was in the 10th grade, he was sent to a military academy after burning down his sister's treehouse. His stint in the academy
That's
only
fucked
lasted
up.
2 years, though he was expelled in the 11th grade after throwing a tire at a classmate during a boxing match. After being expelled, Spacey was enrolled in Chatsworth High School, where he would begin to pursue acting after his school counselor would recommend he look into healthy outlets for his energy and need for attention. For Kevin, it seemed to be exactly what he needed, and he took to the stage like a fish to water. Many of the people around him remarked on the notable change to his personality, as it seemed that he had found what drove him. He later graduated co-valedictorian in 1977, and after began to pursue a career on stage in whatever form he could. At first, Kevin was interested in stand-up as it required less auditioning and rejection. He would go to bowling alley talent contests and comedy clubs during open mic nights and do impressions to middling
35.
success.
I wonder if he
Some
was
of the
good.
comedians around him, but he was green and needed more time to learn the craft. However, Spacey didn't know if comedy was the route he really wanted to pursue. After some encouragement from his friend from school, Val Kilmer, Kevin applied
Oh,
to Juilliard
shit.
and was one of the 28 students accepted into
I
the
love
class
Val
in
Kilmer. I
1979.
truly
In an
do.
essay about his former teacher, Marianne Seldes, Kevin recalled his short tenure at the prestigious school fondly, stating that she was the first person in his life who truly believed in his talents and abilities. He also referenced the
39.
fact that he had left the school after only 2 years of classes and might have been kicked out, though that was never directly
40.
reported. Shortly after leaving
This
Juilliard,
feels
Kevin would be on the
wrong,
road to becoming the star
but
the world would come to know
trust
him
the
as,
process,
and go on to
trust the
create a
pattern.
reputation for trying to take advantage of those unfortunate enough to get in his line of vision. The following portion of this video is going to include the statements of multiple victims who have
Definitely
come
gonna
forward
have to
against
sew
Kevin, and
these
some are
little
graphic in
gaps
nature.
shut.
If you are at all sensitive towards discussions of sexual assault, it might be beneficial for you to leave the video now to protect your mental well-being.
Okay, I'm
Please
gonna
look after yourself
remove
and do
also
not consume the
this
rest of the video
marker.
if you have even an inkling that this might be hurtful to you. One common misconception about
And
Kevin
put it
Spacey
here
and the
so that you can
allegations
just keep
against
track
him
of where
is
we
that
are.
people
That's the
only
end of
came
our
forward during the Me
regular
Too movement in
pay doubles.
2017, and that prior to that,
And
no
now-
allegations had been made. However, that is patently false, as for as long as Kevin had been working, he had had men and women allege that he had been inappropriate with them, to the point that
We're gonna
Netflix
do
had to
every
put a
other
sexual
is an
misconduct clause
increase.
in his contract,
What part of the
and
bag is
Family
this?
Guy
The
had made a joke
bottom
out
of
of
it.
it years prior.
$10.
$5.
$8 and I'll do it.
Fine.
Help! I've escaped from Kevin Spacey's basement! Help me!
Much like with Harvey Weinstein, Matt Lauer, and Bill Cosby, Kevin Spacey's
Okay, we have to
repeated
do this
sexual
6
advances and
times.
assaults were well known in the industry and considered an open secret. To properly showcase the breadth of some of the claims and how well known they were to people in the industry, as we discuss Kevin's career, we will intersperse the alleged offenses as they occurred. In 1981, Kevin made his professional stage debut as a spirit carrier in the New York Shakespeare Festival. He had various small roles prior, which he would
One.
describe in an article for The New Yorker as embarrassing and pathetically bad. But from this small role, he had gotten his foot in the door. The next year, 1982, Kevin made his Broadway debut as Oswald in Ghosts by Henrik Ibsen. Following that, he portrayed Valente in Molière's The Misanthrope in 1983. At the same time, Kevin began a year-long sexual relationship with a 14-year-old boy he had met 2 years prior when he was just 12. According to the anonymous victim who came forward in 2017, but had spoken publicly about the assaults beginning in 1990, he first met Kevin in 1981, when Kevin was a guest teacher at an acting class he was enrolled in. At the time of their original meeting, Kevin was 22, and when he began seeing the minor, he was 24 and on Broadway.
That's
According
so
to the anonymous
gross.
victim's statements, Kevin gave the boy his number after they ran into each other in Central Park, and when he called him the next day, Kevin declared he was in love with him and had been since he was 12, but had stayed away due to age. Kevin love-bombed the
Boy.
child and told him that there were producers he knew that were interested in the 14-year-old boy for a number of roles. This, of course, was not true, and just a tactic that Kevin used to groom the child. The
Wow.
victim stated that they continued to see each other for a year, in which they repeatedly had sex. But the last time he saw Kevin, he had been physically abusive and tried to further take advantage of the situation. To be clear, their entire relationship, as described by the victim, was abuse. I only use the word relationship as it's what the victim used, and they stated it properly described how he felt about Kevin at the time, being a child. During that night, the boy got uncomfortable with how forceful Kevin was and told him to stop, but Kevin held him down and tried to physically dominate him. The boy was
And
able
now
to
we do
push Kevin
40
off of
again,
him and
so
left
we
the
can
apartment
move
in a
this
hurry,
marker
feeling
again.
incredibly violated and taken advantage of. After that, their relationship ended, and he only heard from Kevin once after, then blocked any contact. The next year, in 1984, Kevin appeared in a production of David Rabe's Hurly Burly, followed shortly thereafter by a role in Chekhov's The Seagull, at which point Spacey allegedly asked a 17-year-old boy to fly from England to New York to spend the weekend with him. The boy had met Kevin in 1984, during summer theater when he was just 16. The pair had a friendship, which he went on to describe in hindsight as predatory and grooming. And after a year of conversation, Kevin asked if he could fly out to see him. According to the boy, Spacey went from being brotherly and kind to being sexually aggressive and inappropriate. At first, Kevin took him out to dinner and introduced him to some famous friends, and then began to touch him inappropriately. The boy rejected Spacey's sexual advances outright, and Spacey turned cold towards him in an attempt to emotionally manipulate the boy into sex. The 17-year-old John Doe fell asleep on the couch, listening to Kevin cry in his room, and felt incredibly uncomfortable about the entire ordeal. However, he woke up to Kevin's head on his stomach, arms wrapped around his body, with Kevin wearing only his underwear. He left and never spoke to Kevin Spacey again. In 1986, he appeared in a production of Sleuth in a New Jersey dinner theater, followed in close succession by his role in Eugene O'Neill's Long Day's Journey into Night as Jamie, which was highly lauded. On that very production, Kevin targeted a 17-year-old production assistant, Kate Edwards, and invited her to his home for a party he was throwing. However, after she got there was no one
J-Rod.
present, as he used that
Maybe
as
I
an
don't
excuse
love
to get
Val
her
Kilmer
alone.
that much.
He began to kiss her and grope her, and she asked him when the other partygoers would arrive, but he refused to answer her, and she realized that it had all been a ploy to get her to get to his home. She told him she wanted to go home and change for the party, citing that she felt underdressed, and, like he had before, he turned cold on her and said she could find her own way home. After the encounter, he refused to acknowledge her on set, and she became depressed, not understanding that she had done anything wrong. That same year, Kevin assaulted Anthony Rapp when he was just 14 years old. Anthony and Kevin were both working actors, and Casey had befriended Rapp when they were both on Broadway. Anthony thought the friendship was just that, friendship. And if anything, they were co-workers as actors. He felt respected by the 26-year-old. and cool that he, as a kid, was able to hang out with him. Spacey took Rapp to bars and clubs around New York. Despite the fact that Anthony looked much younger than 14, he invited him to parties and shows, and it was because of that that Anthony felt more comfortable saying yes when Kevin invited him to a party at his house. When Anthony arrived at the party, he quickly realized that he was the only child there, and everyone else was above drinking age. He felt weird, and instead of hanging around with the adults, he wandered into a bedroom and watched TV for the entire night. He said the following about that night. My memory was what I thought. Oh, everyone's gone. Well, yeah, I should probably go home. Spacey sort of stood in the doorway, kind of swaying. My impression when he came into the room was that he was drunk. He picked me up like a groom picks up the bride over the threshold, but I don't like squirm away initially, because I'm like, what's going on? And then he lays down on top of me. He was trying to seduce me. I don't know if I would have used that language, but I was aware that he was trying to get with me sexually. Rapp was able to push Spacey off of him and lock himself in a bathroom for a short while. He composed himself and then told Spacey that he was going to leave, at which point Kevin, leaning in the doorframe, asked if he really had to go, but didn't stop Anthony as he left. That same year, he made his film debut in Mike Nichols' Heartburn, alongside Meryl Streep and Jack Nicholson. His part was small, but he was so well received that he would then go on to appear in another Nichols film, Working Girl. Kevin's celebrity continued to rise in the theater and movie scene, and he nabbed a role in the Long Wet Theater's production of National Anthem. And in 1988, he became involved with another minor. Justin Dawes was a volunteer usher at the theater and had met Spacey, who was 29 at the time, backstage. He told Dawes that he was throwing a party in his apartment to show Roman Polanski's Chinatown and asked if he and his friend would like to come over. The boys agreed, but just like with Kate, when they arrived at the actor's apartment, no one was present. Spacey made the boys drinks and put gay pornography on instead of Chinatown, and told the boys that everyone who was supposed to come over decided not to come over last minute. After a short while, the boys left, telling Spacey they had somewhere to be. Spacey tried to convince them to stay, but the boys left, and he never spoke to them again. That same year, he would star in The Murder of Mary Fagan, a two-part miniseries that starred Jack Lemmon and Cynthia Nixon. In 1989, he starred in See No Evil, Hear No Evil, a comedy film starring Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. In the year that followed, he went back to stage and played Uncle Louie in Neil Simon's Lost in Yonkers, which ultimately earned him a Tony Award. The next 4 years, he continued to get work on stage and film, alongside some of the biggest stars in Hollywood. He worked with Al Pacino in Glengarry Glen Ross, Judy Davis in The Ref, and Benicio del Toro in Swimming with Sharks. But his major breakthrough occurred in 1995, when he starred in Bryan Singer's neo-noir film The Usual Suspect, which garnered him an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. That same year, he appeared in David Fincher's Seven,
a
which
tough
many
one,
believe to be the
y'all.
best crime
Like
thriller
legit,
of all
don't
time.
feel
It wouldn't be
obligated to
until
stick
he was on
around,
set
but
that
like
same
just so you
year,
guys know, it's
shooting for
never
the
gonna
movie
be
Outbreak,
easy
that
to
Spacey would
listen
go on to approach
to true
another
crime. These are
sexual
real
partner,
people
although
that
at this
real
time,
crimes
they were at
happened
least over the
to.
age of 18. While on the set of Outbreak,
So I don't know.
Mark Ebenhock was working as a military advisor
Definitely
when one
don't
of Kevin's
feel like you
on-set
have to
assistants
announce it
approached
or
him.
excuse
Spacey
yourself, but
always
like
had
if
a
you can't
harem
handle
of
these
young
things, this is
assistants
definitely
who
not
he
a
was
community
surrounded
for
by.
you. You know
Most
what I
of the
mean?
production joked were there to satisfy his sexual appetite. Despite that, one
my
day
goodness, Dust
Ebenhock
Shadow
was
Fox,
approached
thank
by
you
an
so much.
assistant
I
and directly
appreciate
asked
you.
if he would like to have sex with Spacey. He declined and avoided Spacey for the remainder of the shoot. The
This
next
is,
year, while directing the movie
really-
Albino Alligator,
it's
Spacey would go on
like
to sexually harass
J-shaped.
another
I don't
crew
know if
member
it's
who was
supposed to
22
do
years
that. I
old.
wonder if
the
I
John
fucked
Doe
something up.
described Spacey as initially incredibly friendly and kind, taking the time to talk to him and other members of the crew with respect, which is exceedingly
Especially
rare.
since
He
this
felt
was
valued
supposed to
by the
be
star director
the
and
end of a
didn't feel as
row.
if anything was amiss.
Or,
In
like,
an
this
interview
was
with
the
the
last
BBC,
beginning
he
of a
stated
round,
that Kevin was,
right?
quote, very affable and nice to everybody. We shook hands and he took an interest in me. He offered to watch one of my student films, which I was very flattered by. However,
And now I'm
his
supposed to
kindness
do
had
an
strings
every other
attached.
increase
On
every
one
time,
occasion,
or
he told the
not
crew
every time,
member
but
to sit in his
again.
director's chair
You know
and
what I
began to
mean?
massage his neck and shoulders. He tried to steer clear of the director after that incident, feeling as if his boundaries were being crossed. But on at least one
Sophia.
day of the shoot, Kevin found him,
What was the
sat
yarn
down
question?
next
I
to
don't
him,
have any
and
yarn
pressed their
questions,
thighs together
unless that's
and
something in
began
chat. I
to push
just
his
feel
hand
like
up the man's inner thigh.
this-
He
I
quickly
feel like
left
I'm
the
doing
situation,
this
but the
pattern
whole
wrong.
encounter
Like,
made
it's-
him feel uneasy. In the same interview with the BBC, he
project
reported
is, like,
feeling unsure of the
J-shaped.
situation, saying, quote,
We'll see
"I
how
was
it
getting
looks
the
at the end of
attention
this
the most
round."
powerful person on the movie set, and I wanted to work in Hollywood," he said. "But it was an interest that made me feel totally uneasy, uncomfortable, and confused. I didn't know what to do. I felt trapped. I felt harassed, sexually harassed." At this point, Kevin was a full-blown celebrity and revered as one of the best actors in the industry. In 1999, he starred in American Beauty and won his second Oscar and received a star on the Hollywood Walk of
American
Fame.
Beauty
He
was
also
so
starred in
fucking
The Iceman
good.
Cometh and garnered another Tony Award nomination. In a relatively short span, he had reached the level of fame most people aspire to. He had worked with some of the greats and could do anything he wanted. And what he wanted to do, according to him, was give back. In 2003, Spacey announced that he was going to become the artistic director of the Old Vic, which was one of London's oldest, most prestigious theaters. He had been involved with the theater since the mid-90s, when he starred in several productions there. However, in 1998, when the theater had almost shut down, Spacey saved the day, campaigning to raise funds for the historic site. He used his celebrity to bring in more than $2 million to save the theater. And following that, he became one of their most significant donors. Being a donor at the theater had significant perks, like being allowed to access the site at all times, going to shows, and getting backstage, although those perks were things he could get off of his celebrity alone. But it seemed Kevin wanted more. He wanted to use the theater to meet and prey on other men. And when he was named artistic director in 2003, he did just that. These claims would only come to light after Anthony Rapp would come forward in 2017. But through the mid-90s through 2015, Kevin would so commonly sexually harass and molest young men in the theater that it became sort of a joke. Mexican actor Robert Cavazzo stated in a post on Facebook that Kevin had touched him inappropriately numerous times, and he used the Old Vic as a hunting ground. Another actor came forward anonymously and stated that Kevin would touch him inappropriately and molest him in public, and despite people seeing, no one would stop him. Another journalist corroborated Spacey's use of the Old Vic as a predatory hunting ground, citing that when he was in his early 20s, he interviewed Spacey in his office at the theater. After the interview was finished, Kevin invited the interviewer to have some drinks at a club, at which point he aggressively started to grope the man's genitals over his clothes, refusing to listen when the man told him to stop. The journalist told him he wasn't interested and was in a committed relationship with a woman. Kevin didn't care though, and according to BuzzFeed, had become convinced that this was a sexual liaison that they both wanted to take part in. The journalist continued to try to leave, and Spacey got so upset that, quote, he was screaming in my face outside of the main bar area, red-faced, spit flying out of his mouth, screaming at me with fury because I didn't want to fuck him. He was actually saying that I did want to, and I was a coward. That was his tactic, and it was unbelievable. The journalist reported the incident to his editor at the time, and the story ran without his name attached. Though he wanted to report the horrifying incident, he instead kept quiet, as Kevin was still in the closet. However, after realizing that that kept other victims of Kevin from speaking out on what he had done, he stated that Kevin had weaponized his sexuality in that way. In 2017, after Anthony Rapp came forward, the Old Vic would set up a confidential email to receive tips and personal reports about the actor's behavior. The higher-ups at the theater maintained that they were completely unaware that he had been inappropriate while working in any capacity. But they quickly received over 20 emails of personal reports about how Kevin had been assaulting men in the theater. Many also claimed that the higher-ups and people in charge turned a blind eye, as Kevin typically would molest men in front of them and they didn't care. As Kevin worked and preyed on the actors at the Old Vic, he continued to act in various movies and stage shows and likewise continued to molest the men he came into contact with. In 2003, he molested director Tony Montana in a bar. Spacey allegedly approached Montana, groped his genitals, and stated that, quote, this designates ownership. He then tried to follow Montana to the bathroom after he pushed Spacey off of him, and he told the men that Spacey had arrived with that they needed to take him home. In 2007, bartender Chris Nixon met Spacey when Spacey came into a bar he worked at, located near the Old Vic. Spacey became friendly with Nixon and invited him to a party. Unlike the other occasions where Spacey had lied about throwing a party to get a person alone, he actually had thrown a small get-together, and Nixon, thinking he and Spacey were just good friends, brought his girlfriend along with him. While at the party, Kevin sat down next to Nixon and without warning grabbed his dick, stating that he could fuck him better than his girlfriend. Chris was shocked and immediately got up and left, feeling as if he had been violated by the famous actor. 2 weeks after he'd
Yeah,
been
I would
groped,
feel
Kevin came
that
to
way
Nixon's bar
too.
while he was on shift and followed the bartender down to a basement storeroom where he once again assaulted Nixon
Man,
and told
I
him
thought he was
would, quote,
brilliant.
make it up to him. Once again, Nixon removed himself from the situation, feeling incredibly violated by the actor. That same year, writer Ari Ben was groped by Kevin at an after party for an event hosted by Spacey and Uma Thurman. At the event, Kevin sat next to Ari, groped his genitals under a table, and asked him if he wanted to go outside for a cigarette, which Ari stated he laughed off as a joke, completely unaware as to how serious Kevin was about his offer, and how he was one of the many men Kevin had harassed. In 2008, Kevin would go on to assault Harry Dreyfus, son of Oscar-winning actor Richard
Holy
Dreyfuss. The
shit.
following is Harry's account as to what had happened in an article he wrote for BuzzFeed News. When I was an 18-year-old senior in high school, Kevin Spacey groped me. It was 2008, and he was directing my father, Richard Dreyfuss, in a play called Complicit at the Old Vic in London. I'd come to visit for Christmas break. It happened one night when the three of us were alone in Kevin's apartment rehearsing my father's lines. My father didn't see, and I didn't tell
I
him
don't know anything
about the
about
incident
Nicki
for many years.
Minaj's
Instead, I
COVID
spent the
testicle
next
story,
9
but I
years
just don't
telling
like her
people the
because
story
she's
at
a body
parties for
shamer.
laughs. I
She's
lived
just like
by
a
Carrie
shitty
Fisher's
dude.
brilliant
I
line,
don't
"If my
like
life
her."
wasn't funny, it would just be true, and that is unacceptable." Telling the story as a joke ensured that this was a story I could own. If I could laugh at it, then surely I was
Isn't
not
she
a victim.
also,
As
yeah,
a young
anti-vax
storyteller
and
from a
shit?
family dedicated to seeing the funny side of the absurd, this was
And
my way of
pro-Trump?
defanging the whole thing. The technique fell apart once I got to college and started telling the story to the people in the theater world in New York. They would respond by saying, "I know a guy that happened to as well." The victims in many of these stories were often young men. These admissions became so common that I started to plan on a break in the story just so people could nod and say, "Oh yeah, I've heard this before." All of these responses made me realize there wasn't anything funny about my story, and it wasn't a
Abby,
joke.
by the way, please
We were
feel
in
free
Kevin's kitchen
to
and my
share
dad
links
ducked
to
out
all
for
the
a
stuff that
moment
you
to
have
go to the
going on.
bathroom. Kevin and I were
your
looking out of his
Twitter, your
window
Twitch,
at the lights of London. when he
anything
came
that
to
you
my
feel like
side
shouting
and asked
out.
me how my Christmas had been. I had had a terrible Christmas, I told him. Because I was too shy, I was 18, I'd mustered the courage to leave our hotel to get legally drunk for the first time in my life. But I didn't have the nerve to speak with anyone. Instead, I had a few drinks and then promptly returned to my hotel room to watch Tropic Thunder for the 4th time. After I'd told him that, Kevin slid his hand into mine. He wrapped his fingers between my fingers and peered into my eyes and warmly said,
don't worry, I
"Don't
won't
be
poke the
shy,
bear or
then
anything."
you'll get over it." I was stunned. Finally, the three of us moved into his living room to read the script. My dad sat in a
So you're
big
just like
chair on the
lazy,
side
no
of the room
sweat. If
while
you gotta
Kevin
go
and I
and
sat on his
relax,
couch.
by all
Kevin
means,
was
feel
sitting
free. We
extremely
won't-
close to me, but I didn't
we
blink
won't
because
blame you for
Kevin
that
handed me
none.
the script and told me to read with my dad, playing the part of his wife. The only thing going
might
through
be
my
starting
mind at this time
fresh
was how
at the
amazing it
beginning of
was
next
that I was
stream.
getting
I'm
to
so
act in
sorry
front of one
that
of my idols. After
I
a
am
few
just
minutes, he
awful
put
at
his hand on my
starting
thigh.
projects,
Finally,
guys.
I became
It's rough.
suspicious.
I
It took that long
apologize.
because it just never occurred to me that Kevin would be interested in me in the first place. He was an adult man, a hero of mine, my dad's boss, none of which were categories on my radar for sexual interactions. Besides, I thought, surely he can't be coming on to me like this in front of my dad. But his hand stayed there, so after a bit, I came up with what I thought was a brilliant safety tactic. I stood up and walked to the other side of the couch and sat back down, bulletproof. But without missing a beat, Kevin stood up too and followed me and sat just as close and immediately put his hand back on my thigh. My dad saw none of this and none of what would follow because he was deeply focused on his script. So I stood up one more time and returned to my original place on the couch, giving Kevin another opportunity to take the hint. I also added one more layer of protection. The moment I sat down, I firmly placed my own hands upon my own thighs, palms down, claiming that territory for myself. Once again, Kevin
I would
followed
love
me,
to.
sat down,
I will
and with
take a
considerable
look at that.
effort, slid
I've
his
been
hand between my
we've been
right
really
hand
busy
and my right
with
leg. He'd
stuff
snuck
with
in. At this point, I didn't
family.
think there was anything I could do short of
I'll take
alarming
a
my
look,
dad
though.
as to what was happening.
I'm so
but
sorry
I didn't
that I
want to
didn't
start
that
a
I
feud
didn't
between them. I didn't
I
want
haven't
the play
been
to be
active in
threatened.
there, just we've
This
been
job
so
really
fucking
mattered to my
busy
dad, and
with
Kevin was
stuff
his boss.
going on.
And besides,
But
I thought,
yeah,
he isn't
depending
really
on when
doing
it is,
anything
I'm
wrong.
super down.
And then he did. Over the course of about 20 seconds, centimeter by centimeter, Kevin crawled his hand from my thigh over towards my crotch. My mind went blank. Suddenly, he had completed his journey, and now he had all of me in his hand. I stopped reading the script and my eyes went wide. I lifted my head and faced him. Looking into his eyes, I gave the most meager shake of my head that I could manage. I was trying to warn him without alarming my dad, who still had his eyes glued to the page. I thought I was protecting everyone. I was protecting my dad's career. I was protecting Kevin, who my dad surely would have tried to punch, and I was protecting myself, because I thought one day I'd want to work with this man. Kevin had no reaction and kept his hand there. My eyes went back to the script and I kept reading. I didn't know how long we sat there like that. It could have been as little as 20 seconds or it could have been 5 minutes. It's the hardest part of the story for me to recall. What I do remember is that, other than being a shy kid who obviously admired Kevin Spacey a lot, I never once gave him a signal that I would want him to be with me in that way. Kevin had grown so used to a celebrity being honored and his position as a director, actor, and the artistic director at the Old Vic, and being so respected in his industry that he felt he could molest someone in front of their own family. For years, Harry kept the story to himself and then began telling it as a joke, trying in earnest to find the humor in it. However, the more he spoke about it, the more people supplemented his story with their own tales of Kevin molesting them at the theater or on the job. By this time, Kevin clearly had a modus operandi down, and it seemed as if many of the productions he would take part in were more than aware of his bad behavior, as he would regularly molest cast and crew. However, little was done to stop Kevin. That same year, another anonymous man spoke of being assaulted by Kevin, saying that he approached Kevin privately and asked him for tips in starting his own career in acting. Kevin and the man spoke for a while, and then went back to Spacey's apartment, where they both smoked weed. The man ended up passing out in his home and woke up to Spacey performing oral sex on him. He allegedly pushed Spacey off of him and left without a word. His career was still going strong, so much so that he had opted to do a bevy of independent films and comedies, stating in one interview that he felt like his career was in such a solid place, he was more interested in doing things that were fun and interesting, rather than taking on intense projects that demanded a lot from him. In 2012, though, he would be cast in a career-defining role as Frank Underwood in the Netflix show House of Cards. The show debuted to critical and fan acclaim, and he was able to get 1 Golden Globe as well as 2 SAG Awards for his role. However, as with every set Kevin had been on, he turned it into his hunting ground. Multiple cast and crew members reported being sexually harassed by Spacey, starting from when the show began production in 2011. A total of 8 sources stated that Spacey's behavior was explicitly predatory, and he had a proclivity to initiate non-consensual contact with production crew. It was noted that he particularly liked young or young-looking men. One crew member reported that Spacey would routinely touch him inappropriately during the 6 seasons he worked on the set, and never felt comfortable asking Spacey to stop, given his position as star and producer. Another production assistant who had likewise been groped on the set had reported Spacey's behavior. However, Netflix solved the problem not by reprimanding Spacey or penalizing him in any way, but moving the assistant so he would not be in contact with Spacey for the remainder of his time working on the set. After this, Spacey would set his sights on another production assistant, this time molesting them when they were driving together.
Very cool. Very
Though it seemed that everyone who worked with Kevin had their own assault story, his reputation stayed mostly intact, as many knew if they were to come forward, they would either be outing him or they wouldn't be believed. Many knew the culture around Hollywood elites and seen what had happened to women like Rose McGowan, who had spoken up about how she had been assaulted and then been blacklisted. According to one of the anonymous men who Kevin molested, if you talked to anyone about it to people, they would be sympathetic.
You guys, I have to pause for a second.
There was always that underlying
one of the great
that
loves
that
of my life is in chat right now. I would love so much, Prescription Pixel, for you to link Checkpoint, link any channel or anything that you have going on that you would like to shout out. Everybody, Prescription Pixel is amazing, and you want to be in her sphere. You want to keep an eye on what she's doing. Congratulations so much on Kiddo. I can't even believe it. You're amazing. How are you? I love you. How are you doing? All you have right now is your baby. It's very good to see you. I looked at your Twitter earlier today because I was like literally I for some reason thought of the word prescription, and then I was just like, oh, prescription pixel. And then I went and looked at your Twitter, and I was like, I miss her. So that is crazy that you came to say hi today. What a weird, like, it was literally just today that I was looking at your Twitter. Doing real good. I'm on maternity leave, hence being able to be online at 2 p.m. Well, that's awesome. How's it going for you? Do you love it? Do you love everything about it? I just am excited to see you. And also, how's is I'm sure everybody's doing wonderful. I do love everything about it. We went to the movies today and saw Top Gun. Excellent. I love so much that baby's first movie is Top Gun. That makes me so happy. Josh is also great. Go ahead. Ugh. Warm in my heart. I love it. I love it that you guys are doing so well. It makes me very happy. Anyway, everybody check out Checkpoint. It's important, and Pixel is important, and I love her. And so, by extension, you love her. Lovely to see you, too. Give baby kisses from Auntie Docs. And tell her that one day she will inherit my skin. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and start playing this again. I wanted to properly address you because you deserve it. I'm so psyched to hear that everything's going well for you. That I'm misty-eyed. What am I crocheting? Market bag. If you do exclamation point pattern in chat, it'll take you a link to the pattern, and you can see like what the finished object will look like, except for not in this yarn. This yarn is way cooler than the yarn that they're using. Okay, all right, I'm gonna play this. I have to pee really bad, so I'm gonna go do that, but I will leave this playing and I'll be right back.
You had to get over it. Casting couches and sleeping with producers was just a part of the deal. That was the price of fame, and I always felt as if people thought I just couldn't hack it. Everything could change when the New York Times and the New Yorker reported that more than a dozen women accused Hollywood producer and co-founder of Miramax, Harvey Weinstein, of sexual harassment, assault, and rape. These articles were published after the beginning of the Me Too movement, which empowered women to speak out about sexual abuse and harassment they had faced in their lives. Though allegations, lawsuits, and reports had been made earlier about Weinstein, many people in Hollywood were well aware of his cantankerous behavior. The public had always hand-waved his transgressions and ignored the accusations that had been proven against him in court. But this time, things were different. Multiple celebrities like Kate Beckinsale, Cate Blanchett, Gwyneth Paltrow, Cara Delevingne, and Lupita Nyong'o came forward and spoke about how he had cornered them and tried to assault them. Many of them had spoken about it prior to 2017, but it seemed as if now people were listening. Anthony Rapp saw this change and thought back to his own experience being sexually assaulted as a child, and he decided to speak on it. He publicly told his story as to what had happened to him when he was 14 years old, and Spacey had tried to sleep with him. And within the days that followed, more people came forward with their own stories and spoke about how this was well known in the theater and production communities that Kevin was a part of. The same day that the allegations were made public, Kevin responded via Twitter, saying that he didn't remember the events that Anthony spoke about, but he was sure if they had occurred, it had simply been because he had been too drunk. He also used the opportunity to come out as a gay man, which many prominent gay men and women criticized, as he tried to use his coming out to deflect from the assault. Kevin was dropped by his agent.
Oh, we're already
and most
here?
of his
Jeez
management.
Louise, we were like
Netflix
just
severed
talking
ties
about
with the
him
actor,
only
killing off his character from House of Cards and pulling the plug on other projects that were set to move forward with him at the helm. Movies that he was set to star in spent millions editing around him and replacing him entirely. And Spacey seemed to quietly retire. However, December 2018, Kevin made his return to public life with a YouTube video titled Let Me Be Frank.
Can you imagine? Oh, can you imagine being outed as a pedophile rapist and coming to YouTube to be like, forgive me, question mark?
Oh, sure, they may have tried to separate us, but what we have is too strong. It's too powerful. I mean, after all, we share
like
everything.
this? I never watched
my
it.
Deepest, darkest secrets. I showed you exactly what people are capable
Yeah,
of.
Sperry, it's
I shocked
fucked
you
up.
with my honesty.
It's
but
real
mostly
fucked
I
up.
challenged you and made you think.
Why wouldn't they
you
at least
trusted
get
me.
him help? You know what I mean? Nobody wants to be a pedophile. Nobody's like,
So we're
you know
not
what
done,
I'm
no matter
gonna
what
do
anyone says.
today?
And besides,
Ugh.
I know what you want.
1, 2, 3, 4,
You
5,
want me
6,
back.
7, 8.
Of course,
9,
some
10,
believed
11,
everything and have just
12.
been
Okay.
waiting with bated
This is
breath
awful.
to hear me confess it all. They're just dying
This
to
is
have me
awful,
declare
Kevin
that everything
Spacey.
said is true, and
Unsubscribe.
that I got what I deserved. Wouldn't that be easy if it was all so simple? Well,
Agree,
you and I both
Sperry.
know it's
You're
never that
absolutely
simple,
right.
Not in politics and not in life.
Okay.
But you wouldn't believe the worst without evidence, would you? You wouldn't rush to judgments without facts, would you? Did you? No, not you.
Wow.
Smarter than that. Anyway,
could
all
still
this
run for
presumption
office
made for
and
such an
fucking
unsatisfying
win.
ending. And to think it could have been such
Gross.
a memorable send-off. I mean, if you and I have learned nothing else these past years, it's that in life and art, nothing should be off the table. We weren't afraid, not of what we said and not of what we did, and we're still not afraid.
I hope he's having a very bad day.
Because I can promise you this. If I didn't pay the price for the things we both know I did do, I'm certainly not going to pay the price for the things I didn't do. Oh, of course, they're going to say I'm being disrespectful, not playing by the rules.
15.
Like I ever played by
I
anyone's rules
cannot believe
before.
this
I
display.
never did, and you loved it. Anyhow, despite all the
cannot believe this
poppycock, the
display.
animosity, the headlines, the impeachment without a trial, despite everything, despite even my own death, I feel surprisingly good. And my confidence grows each day that soon enough you will know the full truth. Well, wait a minute. Now that I think of it, you never
16.
actually saw
Yeah,
me
I
die.
am fairly certain that's what's going on. And he's trying to. I'm wondering, actually, I'm pausing again. I'm so sorry. I'm wondering if he was like talking to Netflix execs and was like, I'm going to do this and let's see what the public perception of it is. Because he's right. You never did see his character die. And they could bring back Frank Underwood if they wanted to. And if people were like receptive to this, do you think maybe they would have? Yeah, exactly. Pixel, that's what I'm thinking. Did anybody, did they ever speak out against this? Because I don't remember anybody from Netflix being like, that ain't it, Kevin Spacey. You know what I mean? I don't remember that ever happening. That doesn't mean that it didn't happen. Like, there might be tweets out there or whatever, but I definitely remember being like, can you believe the gall, the balls, the audacity of Kevin Spacey? But never what industry people had to say about it. You know what I mean? Anyway, sorry. Was just musing.
Conclusions
Whoops.
can be so deceiving.
There we go.
Miss me?
Ew. Kevin Spacey, you're gross.
The video was incredibly strange and ominous, as Kevin spoke as his character, Frank Underwood, and referenced the allegations
I have to
made
count these
against
really
him.
quick.
Many fans of House of Cards praised his acting ability in the comments, stating the show had gone to shit without him, and that this one video was better than the entirety of the season he was removed from. But others felt like him saying, besides, I know what
Okay.
you want.
I'm gonna
to the
mark the
audience
20th
after
so
years
that
of
it's
sexually
easier to
assaulting
count
people
when
and
I
not taking no for an answer to be
inevitably
alarming.
lose count
That
again.
same month, Kevin
This was
faced his
16,
first
right?
lawsuit
It was
from the
16.
allegations, but the lawsuit was later dropped when, due to the amount of time that had passed, it was found that key evidence had gone missing.
Oh,
In
no.
2019, Kevin was being investigated
There we
for
go.
another criminal complaint. However, the investigation was closed when the complainant mysteriously and suddenly died. Despite the legal issues, in 2019, Kevin put out another video as Frank, titled KTWK, which stood for Kill Them with Kindness. Here's the video.
I didn't know about the second one.
You didn't really think I was going to miss the opportunity to wish you a Merry Christmas, did you?
I wish you would
New
have.
year, and I'm grateful to have my health back. And in light of that, I've made some changes in my life, and I'd like to invite you to join me. As we walk into 2020, I want to cast my vote for more good in this world. Ah, yes, I know what you're thinking.
That's
You
rich.
serious? I'm dead serious. And it's not that hard, trust me. The next time someone does something you don't like, you can go on the attack, but you can also hold your
You
fire.
are so detached from reality.
Kill them with kindness.
It should be stated that this video was released, and 8 days after, another one of his accusers died suddenly, leading many to suspect foul play, although there was and is no proof of that. In 2020,
I don't
Spacey and his
recall
production
these
companies, M
deaths.
Profit and Trigger Street Productions, were ordered to pay $31 million to MRC, the company that produced House of Cards, as he had violated their sexual harassment policy in a way that damaged the entire company. That same year, he made another Christmas video, this
shit, I
time
fucked
dropping the Frank Underwood
My
character
bad.
to talk about the COVID-19 pandemic. As of today, in 2022, he has recently been charged by the Crown Prosecution Service in the United Kingdom, stemming from 3 separate complaints of sexual assault. The case is ongoing, and despite his legal woes, Kevin has returned to working in Hollywood. According to IMDb, he is starring in the movie Gateway to the West, Peter
What
5'8",
the
and the Man That
fuck?
Drew God. And given his YouTube comments, there are some people avidly awaiting his return. There is no neat and tidy way to end this video. The accusations against
Reaper,
Kevin
thank you so
have
much
gone
for
back
the
years.
raid.
He was one of the most well-known men working in Hollywood, and most who worked with him knew about his predatory behavior. His return to Hollywood is not
We just
shocking nor
learned
surprising.
that
but
Kevin
in a year's
Spacey
time, given the
is still
trial
getting
against him,
Hollywood roles. We
hopefully
just
we will
learned
see
that.
justice done.
So,
Thank you for
sorry
watching
about
this
the
episode
weird
of Dreading.
fucking
If you want to support the channel,
response.
consider joining
I
our Patreon. If you like this
cannot
video
believe
and like true crime content, feel free to like and subscribe.
that
and
he
leave a
has
comment, as it
fucking
helps us in the
Hollywood
algorithm. With that
roles
said, have a
upcoming.
wonderful day,
What the
and remember
fuck,
to
you
stay
guys?
safe.
I'm a little sick from that.
Method acting is a system of training and
Oops,
practice.
sorry. I just barely didn't make it. How much time do we have? We have... Oh my goodness. Hey, Gecko the Ace, thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate you. Clearly, I am not cynical enough. I did not realize that... I thought that this was outside of cynicism. Okay, like... Just wow. Just fucking wow. Do you guys want to do, like, 1 or 2 that chapters really quick while we make up the rest of the time? There's supposed to only be 13 minutes left of stream, but I feel like we can do a couple that chapter videos. He's doing, like, longer form ones, hey? The Art of Hiring Fake Hitmen 2. I hope you guys are okay with this because it's what we're doing. I'm so excited. I hate myself for being excited about true crime, but like, how are you not going to get excited about watching people hire cops thinking that they're hitmen? It's like watching Karens get shut down on YouTube compilations. It's just très magnifique. That was the worst French accent I've ever done. Très magnifique. That's much better. Cops are hitmen, to be fair. Yo. You just blew my mind a little bit. I'm not gonna like, yeah, that tracks. Ugh. Anyway, can I just get 4 readies in chat and we will fucking watch some people try to kill their spouses and business partners? Wow, y'all. It's true, though. And Lisa, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It is true. The difference of hiring a hitman or a cop acting as a hitman is how much you pay. Yeah. I guess you're not fucking wrong. And it's not even about how much you pay. It's about how much you have. Because the cops don't get that money. All right. Anyway, I am going to hit play now because we got enough readies.
Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike.
Hey you, Mike.
And in this old
How
video,
are
What
ya?
we're going to do is we're going to look at part 2 of being not very good at being bad. I definitely felt like I needed to make a part 2 of this video because there's so many stories I wanted to cover. Some real
That is a sick
good
shirt.
ones. And some of these maybe you might be a little bit familiar
wears
with.
some very
Others,
cool shirts.
maybe
I
not
like
so
his
much.
fashion
But I
sense
mean,
a
I
lot.
don't know what you know, so we'll see. We got the doctors, always with the doctors. We got the internet, what's going on there? Weird online websites that people were stupid enough to believe were real. We got hearty belly laughs and zingers ahoy. So we got it all, but to get to it, you know, we gotta give it a go.
$24. I laughed for a moment. Why is Reaper calling me a ding dong? I'm an innocent little lizard. You're also a ding dong.
First up, we got probably one of the more stupid ones.
A dingless dongus.
This is the story of Wendy Wayne,
In
the
the
Wayne
Latin.
train, Wayne Stain McGain, a person who would genuinely believe those Nigerian
need
princes. They're sound lads.
83.
The internet, right? Probably, you know, despite what you would think about it being like a wealth of knowledge, in fact, it's probably just made us stupider. And none more so
gecko.
than this woman. And let's be honest, I suppose, there's a lot more than just her, who
24.
believed www.rentahitman.com to be a real website. You often hear like stories and urban legends of hitmen, your websites on the dark web, where you can hire a hitman to kill someone. But
25.
Wendy was only delighted. She was only delighted to find out that it was actually a lot easier to rent a hitman than even needing to download Tor or the Onion, whatever. You'd think the t-shirts would be a dead giveaway, but you'd be wrong. Stupidity should never be underestimated.
This is
I'm sure she
wild.
was even relieved when she saw the website was compliant with HIPAA. That's the Hitman Information Privacy and Protection Act. After reading through the fabulous testimonials,
I feel like this is
and
just
awards,
taking advantage
it
of
sure
dumb,
put
angry
me at
people.
ease.
But
You can
I
fill
mean,
out
they
a
are
little
trying to
form,
hire hitmen.
bit
So
about yourself, your desired code word, mine's goo, and then who is your target. It's all inclusive, self-included. One fine day, that day being the 17th of July 2020, the Wayne train contacted the site, thinking, yeah,
27?
this baby looks good to go. Wendy was 52 years old, a native of South Rockwood, Michigan, a real pearl of the Midwest. She'd had it up to here with her ex-husband, who she said, you know, she alleged had
28.
stolen 20 grand from her, and if he wasn't going to give it back, she would pry it from his cold, dead hands. She filled out the little form, signing off, I prefer not going to jail. Thank you for your time. Prefer's got nothing to do with it.
29.
The site is run by Guido Finelli. Oh, that's a really great hitman name. Well, his real name is Bob Innes, and he set up rentahitman.com as a class project in 2005. He completely forgot about it, and then came back a few years later and was like, oh shit, this inbox is full,
30.
and people think this is real.
That's
People from
insane.
all over the world emailed and emailed today looking for a hitman. And Bob, he goes through the requests. Most are jokes, you know, people realize it's a
31.
party. Some are maybe not jokes, but just not serious. But every so often he's like, shit. Then he passes the info onto the relevant local authorities, and
Good on
they
ya.
may conduct a sting operation, saying, yeah, you contacted Rent a Hitman, you rang. This has led to
32.
dozens and dozens of arrests for solicitation to commit murder. Wendy Wayne was another one. She met with an undercover cop, say she would pay $5 grand, and gave a
Wowee.
$200 down payment. And well, you can imagine the rest. In January 2022,
33.
she was sentenced to 7 to 20 years in prison. But the whole story of like internet, hitmen, boogeymen, that sort of thing, it's nothing new. The Base Mafia, it's a fun one of the more well-known dark web, hitman sites. Now it purported to be real, with real killers, Albanian hitmen. And that's how it worked. It ain't obviously fake, like rentahitman.com. So in fact, real people desiring to become contract killers reached out to this website.
Welcome back, Rain.
Maybe they played a bit too much of Hitman Blood Money, which in turn led the base
Oh
of
my
the website
goodness.
to appear
Nick Hista,
more
thank you so
real
much
when
for the
person
raid.
behind
Hi
it would
guys,
get
I'm
them to film
Doxy.
videos
We're
for the
doing what's
site.
called creepy
Like
crochet, where I crochet a project and we watch something creepy. In this case, it's true crime. I am a garbage human being. Follow me. Thank you so much for the raid. Appreciate you. What were you guys up to? Also, definitely feel free if you need to raid and run. I 1,000,000% understand. I do it every time. Hell yeah. Yeah, we're watching people try to hire hitmen and fail miserably. Currently, that's the video that we're watching. Shit, I keep losing count because, again, I have untreated ADD. Okay, so 21, 22, 23. Fuck. Sorry, it's really
So how the
hard.
base of Mafia worked was that people
Because
believed it
this
was
yarn
real.
is
They
so
would contact
multicolored.
Yura, who's the man behind it, and then they would pay up front in Bitcoin. So you can see where this is going. He'd message them back,
Oh,
as to why
Monstro,
their target hadn't
why?
been eliminated yet. We'll get him
Monstro's
next time.
here.
The sniper rifle, it jammed. I forgot to get my silencer back off my mother, and so on and so forth.
Hello, sir.
Excuses all the time. While you just had run away with your Bitcoin, and you had no way of chasing him down. He has
Hello,
trained killers
mister.
after all. Eventually, the website will be hacked, and a very long and complex story
Hi,
short
James.
led
How
to
are
numerous
you?
arrests of people who tried to hire assassins.
You're
So
very
the guy
cute.
behind it, he was like scamming instigators
you.
the whole time. A-okay in my book. The base Mafia site
I love my
and subsequent
kitty.
iterations were shut down by a man named Chris
Mickey,
Montero,
you can't be up
a
there.
self-described pirate and cybercrime researcher. It actually ended up being an entire saga linked to a real murder.
He's very helpful.
Check out the Wired article or a video by Barely Sociable to learn more. Chris had found vulnerabilities in the site and was able to get the entire message database. On his pirate.london
Hi, Dazian.
site,
How are you?
he has some statistics as he continues to investigate various online murder for hire plots. When the base
Okay,
of Mafia
bye.
was shut down, the guy, Yura, he would set up a new one, that would get shut down, he'd set up a new
Okay.
one, and so
I'm
on
gonna
and so
count
forth.
these. It's
Fun
gonna
fact,
be great.
most of the
He's
murder
gonna start
for hire
saying a
requests
bunch of
come
numbers.
from
I
the
can feel
USA,
it.
followed by UK and India. In the USA, most requests come from California,
Thank
Texas,
goodness I
and
marked
Georgia.
this, hey?
Florida,
21,
surprisingly
22,
down the list a little bit. I mean,
23,
more than
24,
you'd think, let's be
25,
honest. Especially when all the weird cases come from there. And here's another one. This is the story of Tommy
This is really hard.
Carlton, who tried his hand at the art of hiring hitmen.
21, 22,
They just turned out to be fake.
23, 24,
Tommy Carlton was living in
25,
Osceola
26,
County, Florida, and he was
27,
having custody
28,
issues. Classic Tommy.
29,
To remedy
30,
this, he would take
31,
drastic
32,
steps.
33.
He didn't know
Okay,
those
we just
steps would be
need
with a cop.
7
Tommy
more.
was a registered nurse
I'm going
in an
to
Orlando
concentrate
hospital.
very hard
He
on
had a
getting these
10-year-old
7
son
done
with
really quick.
Elizabeth,
I
once
apologize.
wife, now ex. Hence a
Remind me if I miss anything,
custody
okay?
battle over the son.
Please,
Bitter?
Thank you.
Elizabeth didn't know how much
Y'all's
until
the best.
all this happened. Tommy and Elizabeth met when they were both nurses. This was in 1996. Elizabeth soon falling for the happy-go-lucky, hard-working man. Things were great until their son arrived. Tommy wasn't quite prepared for life as a dad. The stresses of work-life balance, money issues, yada yada yada, and eventually, things went down to shitter. Elizabeth would say Tommy he would be abusive, custody battles, the whole 9 yards. He became quite violent toward Elizabeth, which is odd. Does he not know
Oh,
what
no.
he does for a living? He's a nurse. So once she fled the house with her
35.
son, Tommy became more obsessed and hate-filled. So how did he get to plotting a murder in a hotel room? Plotting it in a motel room I can smell from here. It first came up as, well, hey, what do you think about this? It was in a Narcotics Anonymous meeting in 2009 that he met a guy named James Wood.
36.
I know that's oxymoronic. He asked James if he knew a guy who could, kill his ex-wife, and James contacted the cops.
We're so
He
close.
talked poisoning, car accidents, maybe someone would do something.
37.
So James was like, yeah, I do know a guy. All 3 of them James, Tommy, and the undercover cop, Billy, met at a motel. Billy, ex-con who'd commit crimes left, right, and center, real bad boy. And he'd take care of business for a fee, $500 up front and $1,500 later. Bargain.
39.
Sergeant Griffin,
Ah,
with Osceola County Sheriff's
39.
Office. Going to meet
One.
the target behind the Dairy Queen on a murder for hire case. Gotta get in his car. Does not want to get in my truck.
You're not a cop, right?
I ain't no fucking cop. God damn, man.
Hey,
You're really freaking me
We've
out.
done it.
I shouldn't be freaking you out. You know it's gotta be careful.
Sorry, Daz Sudan. It
Yeah,
only
any
works
good basic
until
ways,
YouTube
even like
can
50, 100
allow
bucks,
chatbots. It only works in Twitch. But yeah, if you search this Heart Hook home for Wave Market Bag, that's what we're working on. It's gorgeous, and we have this beautiful blue and purple.
I mean, Tommy's story
yarn
to the hitman was that his ex-wife
that
and her
I
boyfriend
just
were
adore.
abusive to his
I
son.
am so stoked
you
on
know,
it.
Hitman,
You
you're
can't
kinda
see
doing the world a
exactly
favor,
how
Mr.
glittery
Mr.
it
Hitman.
is.
He needed
Like
it
this
done,
doesn't
and
do
he
it
needed
justice,
done
but
now.
it is
Why?
so beautiful.
Well, the 14th of May
Oh,
was
hey,
fast
welcome,
approaching, and that
Dan.
was a court date in the ongoing
How are
custody
ya?
battle. Tommy and Billy met a few more times, talked money, talked what needed doing. The police then reached out to Elizabeth, and they did get her in on it. They faked execution pictures.
Okay, so now
Execution pictures for
we
Tommy,
have
who
to
was
do
only too happy to
3 hay
believe
doubles.
they were real.
Agent Griffin with Osceola Sheriff's Office, going to meet the suspect for the murder for hire at the Walmart. I'll show him the picture.
Just in this stitch, and it won't be hard from here, I don't think. 1,
Done, brother. God, fucking done, man. Look at this shit.
2.
Stupid fucking bitch, man. Come out in her car. I was hiding in the woods, man. Fucking took care of her. I tried to get her fucking ID,
3.
but in her purse, man, and I couldn't fucking find her ID. So I said, fuck it. I snapped the goddamn picture and then took off in the woods. I fucking go to get out of there, man, and I hear woo woo. But I was on the back road. I cruised on that. I didn't even see them, but I could hear the motherfuckers. You know, I don't know if there was more people inside, but they couldn't have seen me because there was like a big fucking hedge and shit. I was
This guy's a
by
good
my goddamn
actor.
self, man. It was fucking perfect, dude. Perfect.
Wow.
You couldn't ask for anything better, man.
Hate to
I'm
praise a
telling you.
cop,
She was
but
fucking. She never even moved a muscle. You know what I'm saying? It was just done. Fucking bam. Done.
Quick.
Done.
Sweet.
Done, man. You can watch the news tonight or something. I'm sure it's gonna be on there. You know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
but I just wanted to show you the door. You know it's done. Man.
Sweet.
All right.
Oh, thank God.
All right, man.
Hey, I was planning on having staying over instead of a patient to go see, so I'd be there a whole hour to.
I have to look at
prove
the
how I
pattern
was and
super
everything
quick,
and
y'all.
shit. I was like, oh shit. So
Did you at least get your fucking face on camera or something, man?
I did. I
Yeah,
went and bought
just
a pack of
6
cigarettes,
half
went
double in the
downstairs
last.
for my
Yep,
neighbors,
no
for everybody
sweat.
called
We
me
can
and
make that
talked to them.
happen.
Yeah.
All right, you're cool then. Just fucking, just play it cool. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because if you really had problems with her in the past, you know what I'm saying? Just fucking play cool.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just be cool, and then we're cool, and we're done, man.
Excellent.
All right.
Sweet, man.
All right, get the fuck out, man.
Yeah, right.
What do you mean, or he's not? He
Then,
seems like
soon after, the police brought Tommy into the interrogation room and said,
he definitely didn't
"We're
seem like a
investigating
cop.
the murder of your ex-wife. Wink, wink. We need to know what you know, so we can solve it. Who killed her? You know."
Are you surprised that we're here today?
No, I thought she was making some bullshit because it's like before. Right before we go to court, she pulled something else out of her hat to try to keep Eric
No,
from
I'm talking about we're investigating a homicide of
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm not saying I'm sad that it happened because I hated the bitch. I mean, everybody in the universe knows that because the way she treated me. I mean, she slept around me 3 times, keeps my son from me, the love of my life, and that's everybody knows that. But whatever happened, I had nothing to do with it.
What a callous asshole.
well, you mean just by
Oh,
watching TV,
Artist Don't mind if I do. Thanks for
when
looking out for
something
me.
like this happens, the cops first place they go to are the
Excuse me.
people around there. Well, not only exes, it's the closest people around there. It's like we're like fire ants. When something like this happens, we just spread out and we contact everybody she knows and deals with and that kind of thing.
And then,
Thank
after
you.
speaking with him for a time, this happened.
It's good to see ya.
He didn't see nothing happen. He wasn't in the car, nothing.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Want to introduce somebody to you.
I should have just done this from the beginning, man. I'm gonna trust my gut more often.
I want to introduce this to you. This is an agent for the
Did the undercover cop walk in? Not yet, as far as I know.
Okay.
Or is that what's happening right now? Did I just talk over what was happening?
Do you understand who that man was? He's an agent for the Osceola County
I
Sheriff's
guess so,
Office.
yeah,
He's a
Moss.
police
Good
officer.
call. My bad.
Okay. So you understand where we're at now in the investigation? You're not following?
Not following.
I know your mind's just spinning. It's going crazy right now, Tommy. I understand that. All right? You don't know where to go right now. In fact, you'd like to hit this door.
They
probably
did that
pretty
to that
quick.
Dahlia lady.
You have
They
to
tried to
understand
get
where we're at.
the one that was
We've been investigating
5,000% sure
for
she wanted her
probably,
husband
what,
murdered.
2 weeks now? All right, ever since you met Billy?
I'm not following.
Why would you take the steps that you did to get rid of your wife?
I didn't take any steps to get rid of my wife.
Tommy Carlton will be charged with 2 counts: solicitation to commit first-degree murder and attempted first-degree murder. Tommy's defense to all of this very clear footage the police had of him trying to hire someone to murder his ex-wife.
Lighting as
His
a
defense to
cop.
all of this was that he had a hearing problem. He said he was half deaf. He's, tried the trial, he had these earphones on so he could hear. And he was like, well, when I was talking to the hitman, I didn't even know what he was saying. I was trying to read his lips and...
Did at any point you have in your mind that you were going to hire Detective Griffin to kill your wife? Never. And in my head, I'm thinking that
This
all
poor
that needs to be
lady.
done to solve this is to have somebody show up and.
Can you imagine fucking finding out that
walking
somebody
out of
tried to
an
hire a
apartment or something
hitman to
and say,
kill
hey,
you?
we know
Can
your
you
kid's
fucking
being beaten by this
imagine?
guy, and then just imply, as a show of force, a verbal harangue that don't make us come back.
You specifically told Billy that you wanted them taken out of the way so my son can come live with me, correct?
Correct.
Them taken out of the way, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, now, verbally haranguing someone, how would that be taking someone out of the way?
In the way it is referring to a problem they have, something that's hindering your path, hindering my association with my son, being able to protect my son.
So if your wife was verbally harangued, it's your testimony that in your mind, you, a registered nurse with all this education and so on and so forth, if she's verbally harangued by someone she doesn't know,
Every time
somehow
she
that's
says
gonna
it, it
take
gets
her out of
funnier.
the way so that your son can come live with you?
Yeah, she would actually
Verbally
actually back off.
harangued.
He just wanted the hitman to intimidate her. That's it.
Should I get
Kill her?
a
No, I
fucking
would've
a
never. I
soundbite
just,
of
couldn't hear.
verbally harangued and make
2
it like
years
our
after he tried to have his
raid
ex-wife
alert?
murdered and believed she had been for a time, the jury returned a guilty verdict for both counts. The prize was 22 years in prison for old Tommy. He appealed twice and lost twice. Congrats, Tom. And speaking of Florida, and speaking of stupid, Tanya Demirhan
If
of
somebody wants to
Lakeland,
clip
Florida,
it, that'll make
she
it
was
a lot
very
easier
mad
for me.
at her husband. Deservedly
Verbally
so. To
harangued.
be argued. See, Tanya, she was married to a guy named Attila the Hun. He was her Hun-E. But it appears
Stop
this
it,
Attila lad
Mike, you
was
little
pretty controlling
cutie.
over every aspect of her life, including forcing her to have sex with strangers at swingers parties.
Okay, the mood
BBC
shifted
would report
quickly.
He liked to watch. And so Tanya was FED up and just wanted him gone. She did try to leave the relationship, but her family convinced her not to and go back to him. The only way she could see out of the relationship was having him killed. And so she contacted a
is
friend who in turn
wild.
contacted the police in exchange for 10 grand or 4
The
cars.
real question was she
take him out
verbally
of
harangued?
life.
Probably.
That went
Dude
about
wasn't
as
a
well
hitman, but he was
as
still
you
a
would
cop.
expect.
You okay? Okay. Okay, listen, some things have come up. Okay? And you're at a police station. I want to read you your rights so you know them, okay? If you don't understand something, I want you to stop me and tell me, okay?
Yes, what?
Okay.
They did to her what they did to Tommy Carlton. The usual, oh, your husband is dead, and we got the killer, but... See, the kicker was that she essentially signed a contract with the supposed hitman on camera.
The guy that they just found, he was driving a white car, a Cadillac, and we searched the car.
Okay.
And when we searched the car,
That's okay.
we found this
No worries.
note, and it's got your name on it.
What is it?
And I think that's you, right?
Oh, I signed it yesterday.
You did.
No, my husband bring me this, and then he said, there's a guy who wants to buy the car. Would you please? I said yes, because the car was on my name.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So you signed this yesterday.
Yes.
Are
What's
we
the
gonna
date?
fucking see footage of her
20th.
signing this contract with this dude and like
What's
her
the date?
accent's gonna be completely
20th.
gone? And she's gonna be like, can we just hurry up?
What if
Can we
I
just hurry
told
this the
you
fuck
that
up?
I know
Yes.
that you gave the title to the man in the green shirt, and that you gave this to the man in the green shirt.
No, I
Today.
didn't give these to him
Are you-
today. Yes, I'm positive. I know what I'm doing. It's hurting.
What's hurting?
You're saying now to me that I'm lying.
That's right, I am. The guy you gave this title to, and who met you to sign this paper, is a cop. Do you know that this note, I wrote it, and I gave it to him?
Okay, but still I say I didn't give it to him. Okay, I didn't give it to him.
Okay. The other thing I'd like to tell you.
Whoa, Tanya.
Let me just skip to the
I don't
chase.
think it's
Let me just
working.
get right to the point with you. What I don't understand is why you would want to kill your husband.
I don't want to kill my husband.
Yes, you do.
I don't want to kill my
You
husband.
told me.
Sir,
Yes.
I didn't hire him. I didn't say anything to him. I don't know him. I don't know him.
Okay, so
Do
now
you
we
know
have to
that your
do
husband
6
is
A
actually, in
doubles.
fact,
Oh no.
Okay, it's perfect.
He's alive.
Okay, it's perfect.
I've never in my life ever heard of anybody that was silly enough to sign a note. But she did.
She got 5 years for that. So what do you actually have to do to get charged with solicitation of murder for hire? Well, it's pretty much exactly what it says on the tin.
Did you bring the money? Alright. Okay.
You're
Oh, I've
giving
never
someone
seen
something of value. Doesn't need to be money
Batman
to have
before.
another party commit murder. It becomes federal murder for hire if it crosses state lines. So when this thing is on, after the police are informed of it, they play along. They either have an undercover cop pretending to be a killer or an informant is doing it, and it continues down to the point that they get, some kind of down payment.
This ain't working for free.
Yeah, I heard that.
So I definitely ain't gonna be able to do nothing until I get that.
That's not a problem.
When money, which it doesn't need to be, but usually is, changes hands, that's when the police can swoop in with the bracelets. In nearly all cases, though, the police tend to
bracelets.
want to act fast and get this kind of show on the road because they're worried that the instigator, the hirer, if the job doesn't move along swiftly, they might hire someone else who will actually kill. Now let's go from Tanya to Tara, and it's from Florida.
Is this
to
Batman?
what we
Because I've
can
never seen
essentially
that
call
Batman one
this
before.
time Northern Florida.
The Batman
So
shirted
Ohio.
lady.
It wants to be Florida badly. It's gagging for it time and time again. Did you ever get so mad you wanted someone thrown in a wood chipper? You said it and you meant it? Well, Tara did.
No.
And when she said though, that she wanted
Stop.
him
She
thrown
didn't
in a wood
say
chipper,
that.
she didn't mean it. When the police arrived, she just meant wood chipper was code for just smack him around. Don't be too rough though.
Holy
We're not
moly.
animals. Tara Lambert was a former model, glam girl over here, living in Circleville, Ohio, a quiet little town. But it was
Wild.
hiding disturbing
That is
intentions.
wild.
This story has similar motivations to old Tommy Boy I talked about. See, Tara was wife number 2 of Brandon, and Brandon had 2 children with wife number 1, Kelly Cook. Brandon was given custody of the children, but Kelly was not too keen on the judge's decision, and court dates after court dates after court dates. Tara was sick and tired of it. So, at 33 years old in 2015, she came up with a plan. A terrible one. She also recently watched Fargo, I imagine. Tara contacted an old friend from high school that she hadn't really kept in contact with. Now, this
This
old
shit is
friend,
so
they were
wild, man.
they were from a trailer park, the rougher side of town. They had been in fights, and so
I'm from
Tara,
a trailer park.
living
I've
in
never
high
tossed
dunk,
anybody
like
into a
glamorous
fucking wood
Tara
chipper.
living in the nice house.
Nobody's
She's like,
ever
well,
asked
you're
me
living in a
to.
trailer. See, you'll kill somebody for me, I don't know, in your pickup truck maybe, drinking Bud Light. That's the kind of person Tara was. You'll do it. Well, it'll cost you $50. So Tara gave this person the name of the mother of her stepdaughters and, make this whole custody issue flitter away. Soon, contact was made with the Popo, and undercover cop Dee Dee was going to take care of her little issue.
Nice to meet you. And I have her picture. And some lovely information for you.
Okay. I mean, what do you want done with her?
Oh my god. Just put her in a chopper, like one of those lumberjack chopper things.
I don't carry a lumberjack chopper. But...
No, I'm just kidding. Like, that's how much I hate her, though.
You want me to just walk up and cap her?
If something else is going on, like in the area, I don't
Papa,
know.
why are you legitimizing this beautiful psycho?
You're kind of thinking of like a home invasion gone wrong.
Tara ended up in an interrogation room, confronted with her own footage.
Also, happy belated Father's Day. Hey, hey.
Am I really, like, arrested?
Yes, you're under arrest.
Oh my god.
Okay. Did you ever make the comment that you would like to have her killed?
No. I just signed for counseling with her. Like, we are going to counseling together.
Bogworthy. Happy belated Father's Day.
My stepdaughter's mother.
Congratulations.
You're the one that wants to have her killed.
I don't
How
want
are
her
you?
killed.
Well,
I want her beat up. You said he was going to punch her in the grill.
Tara, explain to me why, so I can understand why you would want to
Can't
have
you
her killed.
believe her? Can you believe her?
I want her to stop harassing us. I want her to stop making false accusations of me. I want her to stop
You're talking about-
slandering my name and
you're
my
talking about
business.
Kel.
Also,
Well,
her
I guess
voice is really sharp. I'm going to turn this down just a little bit.
During the trial, Tara,
Never mind,
you know,
my
her defense said,
cursor
I was
has
only joking. These hillbillies
disappeared.
don't understand
Also,
my
that part's over, so whatever. We're
She was
fine.
found guilty of first-degree conspiracy to commit
That's a cute
aggravated
shirt.
murder.
I could
and
make
got
that.
7 years in prison. Though she did get a Dr. Phil appearance out of it, probably the most evil thing she did. The best part of all these is when there's clear footage of them doing something and they're just denying it.
How was your first
In fact,
Father's
some
Day?
people really do seem like
Bogworthy,
they're
was
in
it
denial.
amazing?
It's like sometimes
Did
there's
y'all
been
have a
clear
good
dead
time?
giveaways that this was a sting, that this wasn't a real hitman. Like for example, in the Tommy Carlton case, when he was in that motel room, in the room next door were police listening in, and he even thought he saw a microphone in that room when he was walking
Also,
by.
thanks for
They just
subbing,
refused
if I
to believe
didn't
it.
say
Go
that.
about your daily routine like I'm not wearing the hat.
Here's another one with Ira Bernstein, who just refused to believe that he was stupid and he was getting fooled. Ira was a Rockland like a hurricane New York County man, and he was a stinky feet man. By that I mean he was a podiatrist. He was married, had 3 kids, and had money problems. He had met his wife Susan at a frat party when they both went to Penn State in the 90s, and they later married and settled in Ramapo, New York. They were living the life, got the tennis courts, the cars, the pools, the what have you. The ramen days were long gone, but you know, they had a lot of money. Susan, she stayed at home. Ira worked, but they were spending money as soon as, you know, they got it. Eventually, Ira began seeing someone else. This led to the couple having an open marriage, and later Susan filing a restraining order against him, claiming he was abusive. He was kicked out of the house, and he swore he would have his revenge, or something like that. Ira later met Kelly Gribeluk. She's not an orc, though she has the name for it. Kelly was a former mortician, current wannabe model, and they met through fate. And eventually, Ira and Kelly decided Susan needed to go.
Who does she
She was a
remind me
stay-at-home
of? She
mother,
reminds
Ira ran
me of
successful
somebody.
practices, and in a divorce, he'd be up shit creek. Enter Mackenzie Lusson, a car dealer from Haiti. He had
I love the
sold
name
Kelly her car
Mackenzie.
previously, and during that time, Kelly had been going through a divorce of her own. And he was a nice guy. He said, you know, if you ever needed anything, just let him know. What he didn't mean by, you know, whatever you need, just let me know, was when Kelly asked him to kill Susan. But he was like, yeah, I know people. Green Berets, Navy SEALs. Those guys from, whatever those guys in Predator were.
You son of a bitch.
I'll get some of them on the case. He was actually bar buddies with cops, so he was like, he went to them and was like, yeah, a woman just asked me to kill someone, so. The 3 of them, Ira, Kelly, and Mackenzie, spoke many times with the police listening in.
Sometimes not having a plan is okay too. I appreciate that. I didn't have one, but we figured it out. Also, nice name. One of my absolute favorite comedies of all time. What We Do in the Shadows. It might be my favorite movie, actually. I have a big old crush on Taika Waititi. I have a bigger crush on Dungeon Dad, though. Don't worry. Your parents aren't getting divorced.
And they were waiting for money to change hands before they swooped in. Kelly did give a grand deposit, and then her and Ira added 2 more names to the list. See, Ira was committing insurance fraud at his practice.
You
and the
missed pretty
insurance
much the
companies were
whole
catching on. You know, he would have,
stream.
fake billing, fake
We're calling it
appointments
at the end of this
for, you know, he
video.
would do procedure, he
I
would say he was
started
doing procedures that never happened.
this
and billing the
project,
insurance company.
this
So the investigators were on
wavy
his case. The
market
insurance
bag.
investigators were on his case, and Ira
and it wasn't
would
going
rather
well,
they
so
not-
I decided to
well,
restart
not
it
gone,
with the
but he wanted them beaten
foundation
up.
row.
So the police reached out to
see
the
if,
2 investigators, and like in Tommy Carlton's case,
that will
got some
help
picks.
out any. A crush on Taika is kind of mandatory. Yeah, I think so too. I agree. He's just so desirable.
Ira, though, he smelled
You don't have to
something
be
was up.
sorry.
They have me
You have a real life going on. That's okay.
I guess they want to break with something.
He even did this.
What's this little thing between the teeth?
Okay. So.
What's this little thing between the teeth?
We have our new
I think that's the receiver for the headsets.
middle
That's the receiver for the headsets. The receiver
of the
for
bottom of the bag.
He bought that too.
Gotta take a gander
So
at
the big question is
pattern here.
when
I'm
is
gonna
the
also
next,
take a quick
give me
sip
a
of
week to get
Wawa.
better, DJ.
I'm sorry
Alright,
that I just
you
said
know,
Wawa. I'm sorry. I take it
don't
back.
wanna be
If I could go
right
back
up,
in time, I would
I-
unsay it.
Okay.
Is it
So
longer?
I'm gonna
No,
give
I
it-
think it's maybe a little bit shorter, but it's also it's
A
much
few days
tighter.
later, Kelly and Ira were arrested and charged with conspiracy
It
and
is
solicitation.
gonna make a better bottom
to
of the bag
commit
for sure.
murder.
Wawa
They
for my
both said
Wawa.
Mackenzie had railroaded them into going ahead
Oh,
with
no.
the murder for Ira. Oh no, he forced me, to
Thank
agree to a plan
you.
I came up with.
I
In jail,
love
Ira bailed himself out.
crocheting. I
Kelly,
love
he
it.
didn't. His love, his girlfriend, whatever. He's like, yeah, fuck you, I'm out.
The 42-year-old foot doctor now stands indicted for allegedly plotting to hire a hitman to end a protracted divorce battle with the mother of his 3 children. The grand jury says Bernstein and his girlfriend, 35-year-old Kelly Grabullock, are on tape and video negotiating with an undercover informer they thought was a killer. Before releasing Bernstein, the judge
Okay,
cautioned that
so
being out of
like
jail
obviously,
isn't the same
I
thing
see
as
what's
being free.
happening here. It's just that the math is
He
wrong.
should
I
have bailed
think
her
in
out
this
though,
pattern.
because later on, after a couple of months in jail, Kelly
But
would
I will
agree to a plea
actually.
deal
You know
and
what? I bet
testify
I did the
against
math
Ira.
wrong when I was
So that
doing
was a
it
big
chain
mistake on his
wise
part.
instead of
Ira
foundation
was
wise.
sentenced to 15 years, eligible for parole after 5. Kelly Gribullock was sentenced to 12 years, eligible for parole after 4. I wonder if they're still dating. Thank you so much for watching.
Oh,
I really
hey,
appreciate you taking
this
the time
is
to do so.
this
Be
is where
here
we call
with
it, I
this
guess.
guy.
But
Back
I
to
will
regular
redo all the
cases
stuff that I had off camera.
So look forward to that. I hope you do. And yeah,
Getting ready for
here,
hike,
what's
and
good
I
news?
was getting
Guys,
our
thank
water
you
bottles
for
ready, and I
staying with
asked
me
her, "Do
over
you
these
want your
2
baba?"
parts of
She
the
said,
art
"The
of
fuck did
hiring.
you just say?"
Hitman.
Your girlfriend sounds
back to normal next
awesome
week.
every time you
But
talk
until
about
then,
her.
Please, as always, take care of yourselves.
All right, everybody, go subscribe to Mike on that chapter. He's amazing. He was so kind to me in the email. Okay, I have a bunch of shilling that I gotta do, so be ready for that. I am about to be moving my Patreon over to Ko-fi, where we will be starting our shop, where I will be selling the projects that I make on stream that you watch me make. I would like it so much if you would follow me on Twitter, join the Discord. They both just got linked in our Twitch chat. But for those of you on YouTube or just listening, it's twitch.tv, or I'm sorry, twitter.com/ZER00DOXY, and then discord.gg/fartslide. I would also love it if you guys would take a gander at my throne wish list. If you are feeling super givey, there's a bunch of stuff on there that I really want, and I can't afford to get it on my own. And all those things are going to be put into the shop anyway. So really, it's like you're buying a present for somebody later, if that makes sense. I don't think there's anything else that I really want to talk about besides, yeah, absolutely go check out Josiah if you like Dungeons and Dragons stuff. He is the best Dungeons and Dragons creator. And I'm not even remotely being biased about that. Like, he is literally he's the most entertaining Dungeons and Dragons creator out of all of them. Hard stop. Okay, I love you guys. Hang out for commercial if you don't mind. I'm going to... Where's this wish list? It's just throne.com, I think, /ZeroDoxy. Have I not listed it? It's thronegifts.com. Here, I will link it. By all means, feel free. I would not be sad if anybody wanted to chuck me some supplies for crocheting. Appreciate it. No pressure. Love you guys. And then also, if you guys could just, if everybody could just talk about how much they love Wawa in Twitch chat so that we're nice and girthy and active for our raid, I would appreciate that so much. All right. I love you guys a bunch. And I will see you tomorrow, much earlier than normal, because we're covering sedition hearings. So that is going to be whenever that goes live. I'm fairly certain it's at 1 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. my time. But I'll be tweeting before I go live. So pay attention to Twitter or Discord. I will post in both of those locations right before we go live. Pixel, it's so good to see you. I love you so much. Everybody go follow Pixel and everything that she does because she's amazing and you will love her. All right, that's everything. I'm going to find somebody to raid.